You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader Phil Williams here live in the Right Side studio. Sort of, kind of. Actually, I'm ensconced in a secret bunker far, far away, but I am doing the show remotely today. And yeah, as the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, JP, is our audio working? Are we actually on the air, brother?
We are on the air.
This is crazy.
Believe it or not.
And just so y'all know, I literally rushed in from the airport, threw my bags down, had a heck of a time getting Wi-Fi, and now, like 1 minute ago, we realized you could hear me.
Yes, exactly. We pretty much started the stream about a minute before we went live. So yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
well, hey, listen. It is, by the way, Friday. It is Friday all day long. Friday for the show. Hit me some Friday. Friday. Yeah, it is. Well, listen, this feels weird. I feel like I'm shouting in somebody else's room right now. There's probably people down the hall wondering what in the world I'm doing. You can see behind me, I am actually in a hotel room. Looking forward tonight to being on CNN. They actually had me come up to Washington, D.C. for this one today. So I'll be doing the show live from the hotel room here in D.C. and then headed over to CNN studios this evening. I hope y'all will tune in. 9 p.m. Central Time is what I understand. All about Trump and the Putin meeting. But JP, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Yeah, I've actually got the Putin thing on the corner of my eye here to trying to see. It's nuts. I can't believe this is going to be a historic thing here. But yeah, I'm also excited to see how they spin it on CNN with you tonight.
Yeah, I am too. Because right now the left is apoplectic that Trump would ever do anything like I don't know, breathe for that matter. Yes. But hey, we got a great show laid on for you. Coming up at the top of hour number 3, we'll do that thing we always do on Fridays. We'll switch off from politics for a little bit and jump on into some JP on sports. So there's that. And then I still got a triple dipper, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right. The Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first out the gate, y'all, one of the biggest stories perhaps of the month, maybe bigger, is going to be the fact that Trump is meeting with Vladimir Putin today. So we're going to talk about the Trump-Putin meeting. That's going to be big doings. I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to give you some thoughts on it. As you have those water cooler conversations with folks or sitting by somebody in Sunday school and they don't understand the topic, you're about to be an expert. We're going to break it all down. Trump, Putin, that's number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, listen, I say give them no quarter. Give them no quarter. What am I talking about? Well, if we can get to the topic, give them no quarter is the fact that we've got right now, law enforcement is being bolstered left and right. The men and women in blue right now are loving the fact that they finally have somebody who gets it, who understands. And so the criminals are the ones who are being given no quarter, finally. Because all the defund the police, all the things that went wrong over the last few years, it's like we're seeing the ship righted. The righting the ship of state when it comes to law enforcement. As to criminals, give them no quarter. That's number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, yeah, I didn't get to it yesterday, but I've got it with me to go through today. Where merit goes to die. Listen, there are still people hanging on to DEI like you would not believe. Hanging on to it like with their craggy little fingers. They want that DEI. But DEI is where merit goes to die. And we're going to talk about the fact that there's an absolute war on DEI right now. All right, let me jump on into today's Right Side Way opening monologue. And I'll remind you guys, as always, that Stan McDonald, lawyer in Huntsville, 30-year veteran in the practice of law, longtime conservative. He is the daily sponsor of your Right Side Way opening monologue. And I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. All right, let me just say this. I'm a big fan of history, right? I like studying the ways of generations before me. I like knowing the history of wherever I happen to be standing at any given time. And I have been a keen follower of contemporary military history since I was a teenager. Today, history is being made as President Trump is meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss an end to the war in Ukraine. A war that the Ukrainians, by the way, did not ask for. A war that the Russians did not expect to go past the Biden years. Putin is the aggressor. Ukraine is the underdog. And since Russia invaded in February of 2022, get this, think about this. Over 250,000 Russian troops have been killed. Another 950,000 wounded. That's over 1.2 million casualties just on the Russian side. Ukraine has lost an estimated 80,000 soldiers killed. Another nearly 14,000 civilians lost as well. 14,000 civilians in this war. The fighting there in Eastern Europe is on a scale that overall Europe has not seen since World War II. And yet somehow members of the left side of American politics and punditry, they believe that Donald Trump is wrong for daring to speak to Putin. But I have to ask, what happens if Trump does not speak with him? I'll tell you what, the killing continues. Look, Trump has taken a leadership role. He's not picking a side at this point, although events of late lean towards Ukraine. Trump is playing the role of mediator, and the only way that works is if the mediator goes back and forth between the parties. It's actually called shuttle diplomacy. But let's think about the events, though, that led up to the Ukraine-Russia conflict. During the Obama years, Putin decided he wanted the Crimean Peninsula. That's like saying that Cuba wanted Florida. And yes, Putin just took it. And Obama said nothing. Suddenly, Putin had ports and land bridges to key waterways, getting things he wanted. But that was 2014. The world watched, and there was a calm because Trump was in office. But then Biden took office, and he showed the world in the debacle pullout of Afghanistan that there was no need to fear the U.S., at least for a while. So Putin launched the next phase of taking what he wanted. And Biden's only foreign policy plan was to say, don't. And then Putin did anyway. So Biden has opened up the checkbook, cranked up the auto pen, and here we are 3.5 years later. But I told you before that I love history, right? And I have to look at this current state of international affairs and wonder about the lead up to this East European war and compare it to the lead up events for both World War I and World War II. Let's think about the sequence of events that led up to the onset of the two most epic wars in the history of the world. And by the way, we're not too far off the mark when I say that. If you read over the historical analyses, it is amazing how much you can see in those events prior to World War I and II that have similarities with where we are right now, with events that we're watching unfold. History dictates that rarely has broad conflict in Europe remained a non-issue for the North American continent. The Atlantic Ocean is no real barrier, it seems, when Europe explodes, and it always seems to follow certain patterns. Cross-border rivalries, ethnic identities that transcend borders, aggressive posturing by a domineering figure next door, and then an incident occurs that lights the short fuse on the powder keg. Always coupled, it seems, by some measure of feckless leadership believing that it can reason with the tyrant, only to find out the tyrant cannot be trusted because deceitfulness is in the very nature of all tyrants. So in the months leading up to World War I, a clash of alliances was set in motion. We had Austria-Hungary. We had Germany aligned on one side. We had England, France, Ireland, and Russia on the other side. When Archduke Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated by a Serbian terrorist, Austria-Hungary threatened war, and Russia came to the aid of Serbia, causing France and England to stake out their ground in the fight. And then Germany marched to France. England got into the fight. Meanwhile, the United States determined that it was just, not our fight. Okay. Warnings were issued that U.S. citizens should avoid traveling to that region. And then the Germans began an unfettered attack on shipping lanes. And they sunk a cruise liner called the Lusitania. Had 128 Americans on it that were among the 1,200 overall who died. And all of a sudden, U.S. passions were inflamed. Political speeches became more hawkish, and soon there were scores of American soldiers in trenches over there in the Great War. They called it the Great War over there. Well, the lead up to World War II was kind of equally and ominously familiar. Hitler determined he was going to cause Germany to reemerge from the ashes of their downfall in World War I. And the rest of Europe just stood idly by hoping that they would not be drawn in. And Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain of Great Britain, he championed a policy of appeasement. He literally worked to find a way, any way possible, to make Hitler happy, to mitigate his concerns. And yet Europe watched while Hitler grew his war machine, annexed Russia, much like Putin annexed Crimea. And Hitler's new war machine then went and fought a proxy war in the Spanish Civil War, trying out all their new weapon systems, found out they worked pretty well. And then Europe stood by because, Austria went down, but it was only just Austria. He won't come here, will he? He wouldn't do that, would he? And it was Hitler. And yes, he did. We've all heard the old axiom that if we don't study our history, we're doomed to repeat it, right? Everything I've just described to you could simply have the names changed and be applied to the current events unfolding right before our very eyes. A re-emerging world power, hungry for the glory days, seeking to flex their muscles under the leadership of a ruthless dictator, a dictator who feels no shame, by the way, in declaring the sovereign territory of a neighboring country to be his own, and feckless leadership in the Biden administration and others like France who just watched and hoped and wrung their bony hands with the hope that this time maybe we could appease him and it would actually work. And so the appeasement and the fecklessness occurred, and we now have a war in Europe again. And the thing that we really don't want, though, is for that war to spill across borders. We do not want to be drawn into this. The Baltic states, Poland, Moldavia, we do not want one of our NATO allies being drawn in. There are strategic interests that we cannot ignore, certainly, but we also don't want family and friends who are currently serving in the military to have to start moving towards Europe. But I will tell you this, though, with all measure of sincerity, we had better take this seriously. We had better not get into a reclusive, isolationist mindset that forgets that, we have to ensure that our best defense is the capability of force projection and overwhelming capacity. We must first prepare ourselves, strengthen ourselves, fortify our own economy, provide for our own defense, just in case the war spills over once again. But there's another old axiom, though. It dates back to the 4th century in Rome. Sivi pacem para bellum. It means if you want peace, you prepare for war. That's not warmongering. That's not being hawkish. That's a view of history. That's the knowledge that one cannot enter into a playground filled up with bullies and come out okay unless the bullies realize you're the one carrying the big stick. But the other very important thing that must take place is what Trump is doing today. He's engaging the process, and he's bringing a buffet full of penalties that he can put in place if he has to, that will pressure both sides to find an arrangement that ends the killing, and he should. It's called leadership. It's called strength. Trump is not only right to engage with Putin, he has to engage with him in order to avoid the historic traps that we've been falling into too many times. So yeah, appeasement, head in the sand, keep out of the discussion, those are non-starters. No, right now what we have is a neighbor's house on fire, and Trump believes, and so do I, that his role is to be the firefighter and put out the flames. The only way to do that, though, is to engage the flames directly. So Trump's taking a lead role in shuttle diplomacy. He's actually going there face to face. He's already been meeting. He's even on the phone this week with Zelensky. He could have sent his envoy out there to meet Putin or Putin's deputies. He could have. He could have sent Secretary of State Rubio. He could have met with the Russian foreign minister. Everyone call it done. But Trump believes the art of the deal sometimes requires the man at the top to actually be the man at the table. And so, yes, he will be talking with Putin. It's the only way. It's the right way. And he's going to bring a buffet of things that he can bring to bear that will shut this thing down hard if they don't listen. History is replete with obvious parallels to where we are right now. Let's just hope that history is not about to repeat itself. We've got to see this thing stop, and the only way it stops is for Trump to fully engage. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Well, there you have it. Remoting in from Washington, D.C. and the nation's capital. By the way, traffic was kind of light coming in from the airport. Maybe that means that Trump actually cleared the traffic. I don't know. We'll talk about some stuff. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, text lines are open. Don't forget to be texting on in. Give us your feedback. I want to hear what you have to say. But hey, let me just go ahead real quickly and just jump on in and remind you guys of Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. He's a longtime conservative, too. He's not only a good attorney, he's like a rock-solid conservative. The guy's been in the trenches, in the mix, in the fray on all the things that right-side ruffians care about over the years. So, yeah, Stan McDonald, he represented his clients in like literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I always say, if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So I'm going to give you a phone number. Actually, I'm going to let JP read out the phone number when the time comes because I don't have it in front of me. But the phone number for Stan McDonald, super easy to get to. JP, go ahead and give him the number right now.
Sorry, I had to leap over your desk and find it. It is 256-479-3020. It's 256-479-3020 for Stan.
There you go, Stan McDonald. And no representation made the quality legal services are bad because they're really good because I like Stan McDonald. There you go. What do you think of that?
I think that's
perfect. It is so obvious that we are working this thing as best we can right now.
We're going with it. I think we're doing great.
I think we're doing great. Hey, listen, you had up on the screen a minute ago during the break. By the way, if you're watching the live stream, we have multiple stations that you guys are on for radio, but we have literally on the live stream a ton of y'all that watch it that way. JP just put up on the screen that apparently Putin just got off the plane. I guess JP, was that what I was seeing? And had the handshake moment.
Yeah, Trump and Putin, they both had their handshake moment before getting in the motorcade together and riding off to the place where they'll be talking. I hear apparently they're also going to have like a press briefing with the two of them after their meeting as well. But they got off and had their big old handshake moment for the press and all. So I don't know how long this meeting will last until we get to hear from them. But that right there, that shot of them two shaking hands is pretty awesome.
It is, and like I said a moment ago, this is history, but it's also based upon any number of things in history that show why this is needed. You can't just put your head in the sand and say we won't deal with this or that we won't be a part of it or why. Like Nancy Pelosi this morning was literally saying on the air, Trump's an idiot. He shouldn't even be going to Alaska right now. No, Nancy, you're an idiot, and you're part of the reason why we have a war right now that's he's having to deal with. So all said and done. They're on Alaska time, so things are different in terms of what time they'll be doing what time their press conference will be. I believe it's going to be something like 3 p.m. local time out there, which I think is somewhere around 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. here. We'll check those time zones, but in the meantime, just know this. We're going to spend a little time unpacking this, give you some thoughts about it. Plenty more to come. But yeah, this is history right now in the making. This is history kicking off. And what we're watching is a president who's not afraid to get busy, to get in the mix himself, and to be the guy who's not only at the top, but he's at the table. That's a huge deal. How much time I got, JP, before I head to the break, brother?
Got about 20 seconds here.
All right. So listen, you guys stay tuned. Text in. Give us your feedback along the way. I am safely ensconced in a bunker in Washington, D.C. That's a bunker called a hotel. But nonetheless, that's where I am. Tonight I'll be on CNN Newsnight with Abby Phillips. And in the meantime, y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Folks, you're going to enjoy this one. I just had a conversation with Brian Dawson from 1819 News, president and CEO of an up-and-coming company that is making a huge splash in the state of Alabama. But listen, you're going to be amazed by his personal story. Brian Dawson, you talk about rags to riches. You talk about somebody who's been redeemed. You're talking about a guy who is looking at life in prison, who now has an amazing family, an amazing life, an amazing testimony of how the Lord has redeemed him, and who is, oh, by the way, making a huge difference in our state. Stay tuned. Just Right podcast coming up next. Yeah, let's do a show.
1, 2, 3, hey!
Brian Dawson, how you doing?
Doing good.
Good. I got notes, dude.
All right.
I'm gonna start with a sort of introduction. All right.
Hit me.
You was born and raised outside the state of Alabama. Spent a lot of your time in Colorado Springs. Am I right?
Yep, and Derby, Kansas. Those are the two places.
Does that make you a carpetbagger if you came from out west?
No, west is not north.
Okay.
So yeah, carpetbaggers only come from the north.
All right, so you're allowed.
Yeah.
You were a white suburban kid,
Correct.
but your parents divorced when you're young. I know that. I can relate to that. But then there's this period of your life. We'll talk about it in detail here in a minute. You've been very candid in some of the other interviews and discussions I've even had with you: crime, drugs, drinking.
Sure.
And then there became time when you were even involved with drug cartels and other things, and spent time in prison.
Yep.
At one point, I know you were facing like just short of 400 years potentially in prison. But then you found Jesus. You found a beautiful woman. You found purpose. You found parenthood like 7 times.
Correct.
And
It's the number of completion, Phil.
Oh, well, there you
They
go.
say perfection and completion.
Speaking of which, we're going to get to the initials of all your kids' names too, which is very cool. And then now it's radio, media, 1819 News, president and CEO. So let's start. All right, let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Early childhood, dude. How did you get to where you went?
Yeah. So interesting thing. I always like to, the more I learn about people and get to know people and everything, I realize who they are, where they're from, who their parents are matters a lot. And I also think, well, I'll just kind of go into that. So my dad is from West Monroe, Louisiana. He is a swamp redneck. He grew up with Phil Robertson.
Duck Dynasty.
Duck Dynasty, okay.
Yeah.
Phil was about 7 years my dad's senior, and so Phil was the camp counselor at Camp Chioka in Louisiana. And so, my dad was like 10 and Phil was like 17 at the summer camp or whatever. But my grandma, Memu, as we call her, Betty Dawson, taught Sunday school with Miss Kay for 30 years at Whites Ferry Road Church of Christ in West Monroe, Louisiana. So I say all that because it's neat on one hand that my family is close with their family or whatever, but also to give you, like, everybody knows the Robertsons and the swamp redneck thing, right? Like, they're swamp rednecks with money. But prior to them having money, there was a saying in West Monroe that the only people that were more poor than the Dawsons was the Robertsons. Okay, and the Dawsons was po, like they were super poor. Okay, I would joke and say
They changed that over time.
yeah, so they did. My dad not so much. That's okay though. Went the middle class route, but my dad, swamp redneck from Louisiana. Grew up. I always say back when poor people were skinny, had to hunt for food, garden, like so. That's that side of my family. And then on the other side, there's my mom. My mom, and we'll kind of get into a little bit more of her background later in the story as it's pertinent. But she was the daughter of a state senator in Colorado, Colorado Springs specifically. And so my grandfather was a state senator. He ran for governor. He ended up running for Congress against Joel Heffley in Colorado. That was the only politics I was around for. All that happened before I was born, except for the run for Congress. And he has a country club background, right? And so you mix this swamp redneck with this country club, and this is where you get this amazing pedigree that sits before
Had
you.
this sort of Romeo and Juliet feel to it.
Yeah, I guess so. But that I really do think that plays a lot into who I am and how I go about things. But for better or for worse. But yeah, so they couldn't have been more different, and they got divorced when I was 2, right? Like who didn't see the writing on the wall with that one? So they got divorced when I was 2. Courts put me with my mom. That's kind of the knee-jerk reaction of the court system. At least it was back then. I don't think it's changed that much now. The knee-jerk reaction is give kids to mom. And had they have done any type of due diligence whatsoever and looked into the situation, they would have seen that was not the best place for me. And so when I was 2 years old, boom, I'm now living with my mom, seeing my dad every other weekend. And
where were y'all living then?
This was Colorado Springs. Okay. Yep. And so, my mom, God bless her, I love her. She did the best she could with what she had, right? And so I've worked through a lot of unforgiveness with my mom and with my dad, but just.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down to some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show, goes like from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn. Straight across the line from there to what we can now call, once again, Fort Benning. Oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web. watching the show live streaming like I am right now. You can see me sitting in a hotel room in Washington, D.C., but live streaming the show every single day, catching what we have to say, but also watching what we do in places like Facebook and X and YouTube and Rumble. And listen, folks, there's a bunch of y'all that podcast the show after the fact. I say all of that every single time. Hear me when I say it. I say it to show that we recognize where you are and we appreciate it, because there's no reason why we would do this if you weren't there. So thank you very much. I don't know if you could hear the coffee gurgling in the background, JP, but I have coffee being made right now in the room.
We cannot. So that's I guess that's a plus.
I may have to step away from the microphone a minute and go ahead and get my coffee.
Wait. You're telling me CNN didn't have a personal coffee guy in your hotel room to handle your coffee desires?
I don't want to brag or anything, but no.
Shame.
But they do treat me well. I am not at all complaining. I mean, they've got me flown up here again, and this time it's DC actually, and so yeah, those of y'all that are watching after hours, just listen, tune in tonight, 9:00 Central Time, News Night with Abby Phillip as the host, and I will be on. I'm not even sure who the panel is going to be tonight, but I am definitely one of the conservatives on the panel, if not the conservative on the panel tonight. So yeah, should be fun. News Night with Abby Phillip, CNN, 9 p.m. Lots of talk about the Russia, U.S., Trump, Putin gathering. Should be good. You got some text messages for me, man? I can't see them from where I'm at. Give me some messages. What do we got?
Let's see. Well, first we got Mike from Coxie, Alabama. It says, Colonel Phil, I can only imagine that if I were there, I would be so nervous I couldn't even talk. But I'll bet Trump is as cool as a cucumber. This is where he's most comfortable. This is his strong point.
You know what? That's amazing. I don't know if Trump gets nervous. He doesn't show it. Think about this. He speaks to crowds of tens and tens of thousands. You know, he does things on the world stage. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe he gets nervous. Maybe he does. But he doesn't show it, does he? No.
And if you're Trump, I think if you've secured many multi-million-dollar deals with a handshake, I'm not saying that this isn't bigger than a multi-million-dollar deal, but I'm just saying, if you've been in those waters before, I think he's fine. I think he's made a career doing that sort of stuff. So
yeah, you know, I said that too this morning on my morning drive, which I do every morning. If you're watching our social media, you can catch my thoughts on the morning drive. Today was on some things that I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But one of the things that I said about the Trump-Putin meeting was, this is what Trump does. He has built an entire life out of walking into high-pressure meetings, already knowing when he gets there what he wants the outcome to be, and having his 6 different versions of how to get there, and having done his homework first, and also knowing, by the way, what pressure points he can bring. This is what he does. This is why, I said it so many times during the Biden era. Joe Biden, it was so obvious, had never led anything in his entire life. He had never once cut a paycheck. He had never once ever had a moment where he had to run the company, make the budget, do the things. He enjoyed what I called for years rhetoric without responsibility. He could literally say whatever he wanted to say at the microphone and walk away, and nobody would have any reason to believe that he had to be held responsible for it later. Rhetoric without responsibility, and then all of a sudden he was sitting in the Oval Office. Never led a thing. Suddenly he's allegedly leading everything. And I look back on this and I think, the amount of damage that was done and the amount of things that were left undone over the last 4 years. Well, Trump's playing cleanup, and this is what he does.
We also got a Bruce from Springville says that only foolish entities want to rewrite or destroy history. The only way we can remain secure as a nation is to remember it and arm ourselves to prevent repeating it.
Absolutely. I think one of the first things you saw when Trump came in was he didn't rush to go meet with Putin, right? He's been in for 6 months. Now, he has been working the issue, certainly, but he's also been putting a lot of the foundations in place that give him now the leverage to do what he met with NATO first. He secured new NATO agreements. He's met with Zelensky multiple times. He has done any number of things to try and bolster our military and put ourselves back in a position of strength. He's doing things to get us in the energy sector away from the ability of Putin's energy sector to impact us, and also, oh, by the way, give us the ability to fill gaps once he puts sanctions on Putin's energy sector. So all said and done, Trump's been laying the groundwork It's like he's been moving the chess pieces. Now he's bringing the queen out, and we'll wait and see how it goes.
Next, we got Allie from Athens says, excellent history lesson, Colonel, and I definitely hope they do what you have suggested. Many thanks and have fun in the Big Apple.
Thank you very much. And I'm not even in the Big Apple this time, Allie. I'm sitting up here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. CNN, I'm not sure why, but CNN said, hey, same show, but could you do it in D.C.? And I'm like, you're the one buying the plane ticket. Why not? So here I am. But yeah, I'll be back in studio with you, JP, on Monday morning. But at the same time, doing the gig up here right now.
Next, we got John from Huntsville. John with an N, not an H, so not the grade giver John, different John. But he says that he Googled the time zone, and he's letting us know that the Alaska time zone they're in is currently 4 hours behind Eastern time. So
4 hours behind Eastern, so 3 hours. Yeah, 3 hours behind us then. Yeah, okay.
Next, we got Shag Nasty the Atheist. He's making a joke out of the guy who threw the sandwich, the Subway sandwich. He said, was it a club sandwich? With a laughing emoji there. So
give Shag some laughter for that. Give the man some props. A club sandwich. Shag, good on you. I will say this. I did post something this morning earlier that said that after the attack with the Subway sandwich, Democrats are calling for a ban on assault sandwiches.
yeah. Really, yeah. They're going to ban all sandwiches though in DC after that.
Oh yeah.
We got two more real quick. Joe in Tennessee says, to the Maryland men who might be listening, Trump's message is de guejo un poquito más, which is no quarter to the max. Josie in Tennessee.
Wow. All right.
Then last one, we got Dave from Capshaw says, did you notice that Trump's red carpet was wide and Putin's looked like to be about 18 inches wide?
I did see that. I was a little curious. I was trying to figure out what just happened. So I didn't know if that was because they just needed like a double wide carpet and they pulled out part of one. I don't know. But it did have an odd effect. But, hey, and I'll tell you, too, I think it's significant they're meeting at a U.S. military base.
Yes, absolutely.
On U.S. soil. We'll cover all this stuff here over the next few minutes. But, JP, any more text messages before I go?
Nope, we're good to go.
All right, listen, we're going to cover a lot of ground on this. And I got to tell you, you're going to wind up having people that are going to, and I get it. There are every version. Let's just say all you're talking to is what I would call Republicans or people on the center right. Even on the center right, there's disagreement. On the center right, you have people who believe, like Lindsey Graham's quite the war hawk. Lindsey Graham's ready to send troops, it seemed like not long ago. I don't think he really feels that way now. But you've got people who are war hawks that would send our troops in a heartbeat. You got people that are on the farther end of the spectrum, isolationists who believe that there's never a time when we need to have an engaged opportunity that could bring military strength to bear. Then there's those who, and this is where I sit, is I am in the middle. I do not want to see expeditionary force. I do not want to see the United States launching troops. I've got family members in the military right now. I don't want to see that. I've already been to war twice myself. I don't want to see that. But I also recognize that when someone's house is on fire next door, if you're not careful, it can spread. And so you do what you can to try and stop it. The problem that we had with the Biden administration, and we'll talk about this more after the break, but the problem we have with the Biden administration is, again, when you've never led anything before, when you don't know how to make the deal, well, what that really means is you're not sure what force you can bring, or you don't have any experience in coming to the table and being the one who's trying to leverage. You're not doing shuttle diplomacy with any effectiveness. And that's what we saw the last 4 years. Their entire proposal was not to talk to Putin and to just say, don't. Remember that press conference? What would you say to Vladimir Putin about invading? I say, don't. And
He
guess
said it
what?
to Iran too, to everybody.
Oh, yeah. And guess what? They did. So don't work. And the other thing that they did was when don't didn't work, they just opened up the checkbook, started writing money, just sending money. Was there any accountability? No. Was there any milestone, any phase lines? No. Was there any battle plan that we could see that we were spending money? No. I'll tell you in a little while as we get back from the break how Trump has revamped all of that. This literally changed the dynamic. In the meantime, take me to a break there, brother. We'll take that break right now. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
them and me thinking, oh, I've forgiven them, but it's like, no, really. And then once you've forgiven them, you can actually see the appreciation that they did everything they possibly could. Now that I have kids, I see. But my mom had a very rough childhood, though she was from country club, lineage. She was sexually abused as a child. She, had all kinds of abuse, and just horrible. And, so she had a lot of trauma in her life that she never dealt with. And so I'm living with her, and the solution to every problem that she has is another man. And so I ended up with like 5 or 6 stepdads. I lost count. Okay. Now I will say, I know there's no way you haven't seen the movie or read the book, Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that was my life to a T with my mom. That was my life to a T. We watched that movie, and my mother and I were like, this is like maybe 6 months ago, we watched the movie.
Together?
No. But I mean, I watched it. I was a wreck. My wife's looking at me. My oldest son, who's watched it with us, is like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Yeah," it was a wreck. And I told my mom about it. My mom watched it. She's like, "Oh my gosh," it was like PTSD watching it because it was so on point with that 2 to 10 years with my mom. And I always make the joke. Me and JD Vance are the same person, except JD Vance, he got into the Marines and went to Yale, and I got into drugs and went to jail. But other than that, same person. But yeah, and so when I was that went on, watching my mom get drunk, taking pharmaceutical drugs, I watched her get beat by some of the men that she was with. Just not good formative years from 2 to 10, right? And so by the time I'm 10, I get into a big fight with my mom, and she, despite many court battles for my dad to get custody of me that he continued to lose, my mom just let go and said, "You can go live with your dad." And so when I was 10, I went and moved with my dad, and he was living in Wichita, Kansas. He worked at Cessna for the bulk of his career in Wichita, Kansas.
So I got to tell you, and sometime I'll tell you my whole story, but I didn't wind up in jail, but I was headed there.
Yeah.
Parents divorced when I was young, lived with my mom, did not respond well to multiple marriages. Mom finally gave me the ultimatum as we had a big blow up. She sent me to live with Dad, who, by the way, was living in London, England, as an Army officer. And so I like to say God had to give me a 3-year timeout away from everything that I was used to for me to find him.
Yeah.
Of course, you had a 384-year timeout coming.
Potentially, yeah.
So let me ask you, you're living with your dad. I researched before I sit down with you, and I'm watching other interviews you've done and stuff. And you said in one case that your dad's level of discipline and household, management was more what you needed, but you still wound up going down some roads.
Sure.
So you were, and I got to say, in going through all the news stories and things, your mugshot came up at some point.
A bunch, yeah.
And you were just a normal looking high school dude. You didn't have like body piercings and face tats, and you weren't doing gang signs in the mugshot. You just looked like a high school football player, which you were. Am I right?
Yeah.
But you also had this sideline gig of doing things that got you in big trouble.
Yeah. No, I'm an all-in guy. Whatever I'm into, I'm all into it, and that's just the way I'm wired, and it was no different than that. And so, going to the structure that my dad provided, but me still falling, I think that was a great tee up. I've never thought about it in those terms, and it actually makes a lot of sense. So, I'm 10. I move in with my dad. He's still not a Christian to this day. So if you're listening, pray for my dad. But he put a roof over my head. He got up every day at 4:30 in the morning and went to work. He showed up to my football games. We ate dinner every night around the table. Okay. He was what he was supposed to be as a father, and he didn't have a father. His dad abandoned them, his siblings. So he never had a dad. And so the gaps that he was filling in were those real basic gaps that he completely lacked, which was the providing, the protecting, those type of things. And so he generationally fixed that, that basic blocking and tackling gap that a father is supposed to provide. But some of the areas where I'd say, and I don't mean this disparagingly, where he fell short, he's not a real good communicator where he can sit down and say, "Son, let me talk to you about manhunters. Son, let me talk," like that. Those weren't his things. He showed up and he did what he was supposed to do. And I'm very, very grateful that I had the time with him that I did. It definitely shaped and molded me. But when from 2 to 10, which they call formative years, those are formative years, right? And your formative years are not very formative. You carry baggage. And so I'm with my dad in this structure, carrying that baggage. And so I would get straight A's on the report cards, and I thrived in that structure, and I did good in sports. But underneath, I was angry, and my stepmom would always tell me.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Got to talk about a couple things. I tell you what, let's do this, JP. Let's set the stage for the meeting first of all. There are a lot of visuals to what we're seeing right now. Part of the visual is the fact that this particular summit is being held on U.S. soil. Not just on U.S. soil, it's being held on U.S. soil in Alaska, which, oh, by the way, there have been past experiences with Russia where they sort of felt like they had lost part of Alaska to the United States. Oh, then there's the fact that it's on a military base. That's just all a visual that is by design, is absolutely by design. But then there's other things that are happening. And I don't know what else we're going to see, because I think that Trump likes to play, I think Putin does too. Trump likes to play, sort of like the mind game piece. And I applaud that. I think you should keep them on their heels. But you were telling me something during the break, JP, that I had kind of missed, that they had a bit of a visual moment there, right as they were shaking hands.
Oh, yeah. So I'll put the video up on the stream so everybody can see it. But yeah, apparently, so when Trump and Putin were walking up to the stage, a B-2 flew over their heads.
Oh, it's not just a B-2; it's got a fighter escort too.
Yes. So I think that might be the biggest power play I've ever seen. Yeah, that's like a gentle reminder to Putin. You mentioned it being on a military base being a big deal, but like that too being a big deal of like, you're on my territory. It's just a gentle reminder. You're dealing with the United States of America here. So I don't know. That is quite the power play. That may be the biggest power play I've ever seen.
Well, of course, they did step off too on the red carpet there, right next to a whole rack of F-35 Raptor fighter planes.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I love that. Now, I did see, though, speaking of visuals, from Putin's standpoint, two things. One is there's a report in the New York Post that one of Putin's top aides, who is on the trip, actually was seen wearing a USSR shirt today, or sweatshirt today. Well, okay, the Soviet Union, really? So one of the top aides on the trip is wearing a former Soviet Union sweatshirt? That's odd, unusual. But then the other piece is Putin went and laid flowers at a memorial. Now, keep in mind, in World War I and World War II, we were allies. You can go back and look at it, and there were times when our allied ship was, somewhat rocky, but nonetheless, we had, the enemy of our enemy was definitely our friend, and that was Russia. Putin went yesterday, I believe it was, and laid a wreath at a memorial that is designed, this memorial is designed to celebrate the union between the U.S. and Russia in fighting back the Nazis. And you look at that and go, okay, was that something that was already pre-planned, or is he just trying to posture for the world that, hey, by the way, us in the United States, we've been like this before, we're like tight, we're like buds. I don't know. All I know is there's a lot of visuals going on here that are more than subliminal. In fact, I would say, JP, that the whole thing with the B-2 stealth bomber with a fighter escort flying over in formation right as they get off the plane, that's more than the visual. That's in your face.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you kind of see Putin look up and be a little bit surprised. Like, there's not very, very many times I've seen Putin be like reactive and like caught off guard. I think that there's one of the few times I've seen Putin actually be like, whoa, what is that? But I think them walking past the jets too and being on a military base, like that is all part of the Trump, like that shows like he knows what he's doing in terms of making deals. You're coming into Trump's territory. Trump's not going to meet in some, neutral territory in Europe or something. Like you're going to a U.S. military base. We're going to fly a B-2 over your head and just show you like that Trump is dictating things in this meeting. I think that's what he's trying to show.
I think absolutely.
Whatever you think about Trump's showmanship, or if you want to call it that or whatever, like he knows what he's doing in this aspect of making deals. So I think that is playing into it 100%.
Well, speaking of Trump, maintaining the position of leverage, and by the way, is there something for us to gain here? Probably, but the reality is he's playing the role of the mediator. So he's not the one who wants the war against his own people ended, but he definitely wants the war ended. And we do have vested interests over there. Don't think we don't. That being said, Trump has never been one to sit at the table when he feels like nothing's being done in good faith. I've been in, I can't tell you how many mediations, none of which have the import of this thing, but I've been in multiple mediations where at some point you just look at your client and go, let's go. There's nothing happening here. Why are we staying? If you remember a few years back during his first administration, I think it was 2019, Trump was at a summit with Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea. They were talking about denuclearization. Trump did not feel like North Korea was acting in good faith. So he got up and left the table, and the North Korean delegation was left sitting there by themselves. And that can happen. And Trump's even said today he'll do it. JP, do we have time to play that video that I sent you a little while ago? If we do.
We do, yes.
All right, let's go ahead and put that up. This is Donald Trump on Air Force One talking to Brett Baer and even discussing whether he would leave the table if he had to. Play it.
Okay, in the office with President Trump on Air Force One, heading in. What's your initial feeling? How are you feeling about what you're going to get out of this?
I think we're going to do very well. Our country is doing very well. We're setting records economically like we never have before, including the stock markets are all at a record high. We're taking in trillions and trillions of dollars with tariffs. We're going for a meeting with President Putin in Alaska, and I think it's going to work out very well. And if it doesn't, I'm going to head back home real fast.
I mean, if it doesn't, you walk.
I would walk there.
All right, there you go. There are some people that look at the Putin, at the Kim Jong-un thing when he got up and left the table, and it was definitely a power move. It was definitely a why are you wasting my time move. But it was also North Korea, which wants to be a player on the world stage, but in reality is really not in many ways. They're not an economic force. They don't have the ability to leverage anything. They're an isolated hermit kingdom, but they do have nukes. So he did that to North Korea, but he just said right now, and he said it openly to a member of the media, if that happens with Putin, one of our almost near peer adversaries. I mean, they are, but they aren't. But he said that as to Putin, if it came down to it, he'd get up and walk away from the table. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic to see how this goes. JP, I don't recall. How long is this summit supposed to last? Is it like 2 days? What is it? Do you know? I don't recall.
No, I believe it's supposed to be a one-day thing. I could be wrong. I can go back and look at the schedule here.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least like the Trump and Putin aspect of it is just supposed to be one day. There may be some, aids or some after the fact to clean up, or if there's any deal made to write things out or something. I don't know, but I think the Trump Putin part will just be a one-day event.
Well, we're going to come back for this next break, and I can't see the clock, so JP, you tell. Yeah, so we're going to come back for this next break, and listen, I'm going to go down a road that I've gone down before, but I want to make you guys, I want to give you guys what it takes to be a semi-expert on talking about foreign policy, because there are certain things that have to be considered in all of this, certain things that Trump is definitely bringing in, certain things that the Biden administration and even other world governments right now are not bringing in. All said and done, y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
So angry. Why are you so angry? And she didn't understand. And I was angry at the world. And I was never really comfortable in my own skin. I had a lot of insecurity issues. And the only time I ever felt comfortable in my own skin is when I drank and did drugs. And so I drank and did drugs a lot.
Sort of a self-medicating kind of thing?
I definitely think it was a self-medicating thing. And once I kind of dove into that, I became the life of the party. I created a fake ID. I've always been somewhat, innovative. I learned how to create a fake ID, and then I could go get everybody alcohol. So I was like the coolest guy, in school. I could go get everybody booze and, party, but like everybody else would like party and go home and be fine. I would drink to the point of blacking out and not remember what I did. And that would happen 2 or 3 times a week, right? Like I was like a wild party animal. And then that went on to the point where I started to do drugs. And same thing, whatever I do, I do it all the way. And that happened there. And
You didn't just do it; you were selling them too, right?
Yeah, and so how it started is, you know, a little bit of weed, selling a little bit of weed, whatever, and then I would experiment with a little bit of cocaine or methamphetamines or ecstasy or whatever. And in that experimenting phase, I was still living in a suburb of Wichita called Derby, Kansas, with my dad. And
I got siblings, by the way.
So I've got from my mom, I have a brother who has a different dad.
Okay.
And he's Brad, and he's 2 years, 2 months, 2 days older than me. Anyway, probably not pertinent to the story, but it's interesting. And then I have a stepbrother. When my dad remarried, he remarried a woman, my stepmom, who had a son that was my exact age. So we were in the same schools together growing up.
Okay, wow, yeah.
Yeah. And he was also into partying and doing things, and also found himself in prison at some point in his life. So, I always want to go down rabbit trails, and it's like, I'm not going to rabbit trail, I promise. So that experimenting with some of those more illicit drugs, I snuck out one night to do that, and I came home after sneaking out thinking that because what I would do is I would sneak out, my bedroom would be shut, my dad would just get up and go to work. Well, he, for whatever reason that morning, needed something, and so he came in my room, and I wasn't in there. He's like, So I got busted sneaking out, and he took me to get a drug test, and I peed hot for every single thing on the drug test, and he was like, oh, wow. And so we kind of locked horns over that, and he said, you need to quit football and go to rehab, which is a really big deal. My team ended up 6A in Kansas, as big as it gets. They don't have 7A there. Yeah. And we were predicted to be the 6A state champs, or at least going to state.
What position?
I was defensive end, and they were going to move me to nose tackle that year, which was really interesting. I was like 225 and ran a 4.840, but they wanted me inside. Anyway, I won't get into that. But yeah. So that was my I was really, really excited about my senior year, years and years of playing football, wanted to do that. And he's telling me I got to quit to go to rehab, or I can quit football and go live with my mom in Colorado again. And so I packed up all my stuff in my car, and I drove to Colorado. And that was the biggest mistake of my life.
So mine wound up being the most impetuous good decision I ever made, because I got caught sneaking out of the house. So I was drinking and smoking starting in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And mine wasn't self-medicating, I don't think. And it wasn't a lot. Yeah. But it was there. And I was hanging out with a bunch of pot smokers. And mine was more along the lines of, you said I can't, so I'm gonna. Yeah. You said I can't, so this is what I'm gonna do. Sure. And it was just like that live on the edge kind of sense, 4th grade though. Yeah. I mean, who does that at 11 years old? But nonetheless, Mom caught me sneaking out of the house in 7th grade again, and gave me the ultimatum. What do you want to do here? You want to go live with your dad? And I just went, yeah. I mean, that was it. There was no thought. There was no preconceived, I've been looking for this opportunity. There was no, I think this is a good idea. It was just get back at Mom. Yeah. And so I said, yeah. Just the opposite, though. Mine wound up being the best decision I could have made. Totally impetuous. Yeah. But I did it. So you wind up in Colorado, though, brother. Yeah. Colorado weren't good for you.
No, that's 2002. Go back to Colorado. Start, I was already about 3 weeks into my senior year in Kansas in my football season. So I uprooted and moved to Colorado, and then went to school sort of. Like I didn't hardly ever go to school. By the time I moved in with my mom, it was free reign. I could do whatever I want. But my brother was driving for a drug dealer. And so I would ride around with them and watch him. He'd have, stacks of cash. All the guys wanted to be him. All the girls wanted to be with him. Pounds of drugs, like, what's not to love, like this is, kind of the thing I'm infatuated with. And here's this guy doing this. And so I kind of went to work for him, selling a little bit of weed. And then I started getting into cocaine. Cocaine's expensive. In order to do cocaine, you have to sell cocaine. And I always say, when I tell my story, the same thing that makes me good at what I do for a living now, which is sales, networking, and persuasion, it's the same skill set I was using then, the exact same thing. And so I went in a very short amount of time from selling, little bits of marijuana to next thing you know, I'm selling cocaine, and next thing you know, I'm selling lots of cocaine. And in a period of 5 years, I racked up 6 felonies, and all of it was drug or stealing things to buy drugs or getting in a high-speed chase with the cops or whatever. But I, went from selling little bits of marijuana to the point where I was pushing large amounts of cocaine and methamphetamines for cartels in Colorado Springs.
It's before it was all legal out in Colorado.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now they let you take over apartment complexes.
Yeah, exactly.
Just,
now you can just bring your gang and have at it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, and going through getting ready to sit down with you today, and I've heard your story before, but I've never heard all of your story before.
Sure.
But you didn't just like go to prison. You were on the run for a while, and then they caught you swinging on a rope out the window trying to get away from a drug bust.
Yeah.
And I am of the understanding that at some point, Dog the Bounty Hunter was offered the opportunity to track you down, and he declined.
Yes, and I don't think he declined. I don't think he based off of. Well, so I'll just tell the story. That's
You
what
have
we
to.
do.
Now
That's
that
what we
I've
do.
asked
We have to
about
tell
it.
stories. Yeah. So here I am. I've now racked up 6 felonies. That 6th felony was the doozy. Okay, and the 6th felony was.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Right Side Radio. Phil Williams here live, safely ensconced in a remote location in our nation's capital right now. But yeah, Right Side Radio, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 already. I don't even know where hour number 1 went. That's just crazy. It's been a day. I'm listening. I'm working on the show early this morning. I was working on the show late last night. I got on a plane this morning. I flew to DC. I got off the plane. I got to the hotel. I fought with the internet trying to get the Wi-Fi up, and literally JP and I made connectivity. What, JP, like a minute before we went on the air?
Pretty much, yeah. Maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, yeah.
Whoop, whoop. I mean, you live it on the edge, dude. That's you know what? We're on, aren't we? That's nothing but good.
I think that means we played it perfectly. Right.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and accept that.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sitting here, by the way. I got several notes of things that are happening in the Trump Putin, but I know you've got some text messages too. So give me what you got right now from our listeners.
We got just a couple of text messages that came in. Tom with all the kids talking about you and being in DC over New York. He said, in spite or maybe it's despite the crime, I'd take DC over New York any day. So,
fair enough. I'll receive that. And yeah, I love DC. I mean, I want to see DC become like the jewel that it was, and in many ways still is. But I'm excited about the fact that Trump has taken a personal interest in seeing the actual city itself get cleaned, not just like politics, but the city get cleaned up. I mean, I'm loving this. So bring it.
We got Randy from Madison too. So just to be clear, we paid $7.2 million in 1867 for Alaska. That's $158 million in today's money. In case some of our liberal listeners failed to study history, Randy from Madison.
We paid $7.2 million. Is that what he said?
$7.2 million, which is $158 million in today's money. So
even $158 million, that'd be a deal.
Oh yeah, that's
so.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think Russia quite knew what they were giving away.
So what's it going to take for us to buy British Columbia away from Canada and then buy Greenland? Let's go buy Greenland. I like Greenland. Let's buy Greenland.
I don't know. I feel like after we got away with that steal of a lifetime with Alaska, they're not going to let us get away with anything.
Nothing still beats the Louisiana Purchase, though. It's
yeah.
like half a continent got purchased in one day. And you know what's funny? It was throwaway land. It was throwaway land that the French were like, you silly Americans. Here, give us some money for our coffers. And now look, how do you like us now?
Yeah, exactly. We got one more text here. It says, Ken from Harvard says, speaking about the visuals at the Trump-Putin summit, being subtle is great as long as you're not too obvious about it.
Being subtle is great as long as you're not too I gotta process that for a minute.
I don't know if there's anything subtle about flying a B-2 stealth bomber over the president of Russia.
Nothing. That is so in your face. Hey, listen, a couple of things that are happening right now in and around and amongst this situation we got with the Trump-Putin meeting. I think one of the things that needs to be remembered, and let's talk serious about it for a minute. When people tell you, well, he shouldn't be going to meet with Putin, keep in mind, Putin's the one who asked for the meeting. He did. Putin's the one who asked for the meeting. He knows that there are more tariffs, there are more sanctions that are possible. General Jack Keane gave some amazing insight on this just the other day, I believe on Fox. But yeah, seeing everything that Trump's going to be using in terms of carrot and sticks is a big deal. Russia right now has a very precarious situation. Their economy is not solid, and the level of what I would call home support for the war is back and forth. You can't have 1.2 million in casualties, of which 250,000 are dead soldiers. You can't have 250,000 dead soldiers, even in a country that is semi-totalitarian like Russia, and expect that everyone's going to remain happy. So Putin, what he's dealing with right now is he needs a win. So the question for Putin right now is, how do I prevent my nation from going into economic collapse because Joe Biden's not there anymore, and suddenly I've got the guy who uses tariffs, like it's, just the next best thing since sliced bread. And what's it going to do to my economy if he does? Well, he's going to. He could see interest rates like shooting 20% up. He could see any number of things that are just like blowing out his economy. Putin could. He can't pay for soldiers if that happens. He can't have soldiers show. By the way, their reserves are getting depleted. They're having soldiers showing up to the front lines with only 2 to 3 weeks of training, says Jack Keane. That's contributing to their casualty rate, certainly. I mean, it's turning into a grist mill on those front lines. And those front lines, by the way, we're talking about conventional warfare, force on force, trenches, reinforced positions, tanks. When's the last time you saw that level? We had some moderate amount of that during Desert Storm, but we blew right through the Iraqis. This is taking things to a whole new level, and it's carnage. I will tell you too, General Jack Keane also said that Ukraine is actually applauding what Trump is doing, and they believe Trump has their back. And I think, you remember we had that blow up, which was like, wow, that just happened when Zelensky came to the Oval Office. And I understand, on the one hand, I'll give him a tad of space here. Zelensky never should have walked into the Oval Office with an attitude. But I understand he'd been in a place where he had everything he needed. He had people who loved on him and like kissed both cheeks and wrote him checks and let him come speak to Congress, wearing a sweatshirt and the whole thing. And that was gone. So there was definitely some, Cinderella moment there where suddenly everything turned back into a pumpkin. But what I'm seeing right now, though, is that over time, Zelensky has modified his approach. He has at times bucked up and said, yeah, but he also recognizes it's a whole new day. But Zelensky has now seen what Trump is doing. So here's a couple of pieces I want you guys to put this in your quiver when you're having the conversations. Trump laid the foundation for today's meeting weeks and months ago. Well, if you get down to it, he laid the foundation throughout his life because he knows how to do high-pressure meetings. But Trump laid the foundation for the ability to come into this discussion with a position of strength, because what he did was he put all the building blocks he needed to have in place first. First thing he did was rebolster our energy sector and begin getting us away from any reason to rely upon external sourcing for our oil and gas. He also began to move us into alliances that Putin can't deal with. So he got us back in there with Saudi Arabia. He got us back in there with the OPEC nations, and we're watching now to see how that develops. He also, oh, by the way, put just a complete butt whooping on anything related to Iran. And Putin got to watch that from a distance and go, oh, crap. He will bomb things when he has to. He will call for negotiations, and when they won't negotiation, Putin can watch and go, and he'll actually blow stuff up. And then what I would also point out is that Trump spent a great deal of time building up NATO. NATO is an entirely different position. And, oh, by the way, the EU. So the NATO Secretary General and the EU have both now met with President, and both have expressed their 100% willingness to pick up more of the load and recognize that it's their front All right. What's happening over there is their front, not ours. And that we'll be there, but they are accepting the fact that there's a new sheriff in town who is saying, I am not going to keep writing checks. My people don't deserve that. Your people have got to do more. And so NATO nations, with the exception of Spain, are now upping their commitments to their own defense spending. Trump also quit just sending stuff for free, just like en masse. How much you want? We'll send it, and sending it to Ukraine and hoping it actually gets employed or put in their bank account. No. More of what's happening now is the sale of weapons and other war material to NATO nations, who are then turning around and making them available themselves. In other words, we're getting paid for them. So we may not be able to sell them to, like, Abrams tanks. Let's take that for that. We may not be able to sell an Abrams tank right now under Trump's guidelines direct to Ukraine, but we can sell them to Poland. And then Poland can turn around and go, we're going to go ahead and sell that to Ukraine. In the meantime, we got paid first. That's a huge deal. That is not what happened before with the Biden administration. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back from this break. I feel like that segment just flew by. We're going to take this break. We're going to come right back. And when we get back from this break, what I want to do is start getting into what is Trump going to the table with? What is he bringing to bear? And how does he bring it all to bear in a way that Putin realizes who the boss is? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
I was already out on bond. I was already on probation, and I'd been up for 3 or 4 days. Found out one of these guys who had informed the cops about some legal activity that I was involved with. Found out that he had just come into some money, and he owed me money, and he also narked on me, right? And so in that world, you don't do that. Those are the rules, okay? You don't do that. If you want to play in this society, you don't do that. Now, a lot of people did, but there was an enforcement mechanism called me, okay? And if you're going to do that to me, I'm going to find you and I'm going to hurt you. That was the way it worked. And he wasn't the only one that I did that to, but he was the one that ended up telling the cops again. So I went to his house. I'd been up for 3 days, strung out on meth, pound on his door. He answers the door. I said, he's like, hey, man, what's going on? I just immediately said, why'd you tell on me? And I didn't tell on you. I walked into his house, pushed him. Why'd you tell on me? I didn't tell on you. And I just started to beat him relentlessly. And the guy that I was with, so the way that it reads in the charges, and it's because they only wanted me to go down. They didn't care about the other guy that was with me. I was their target, okay, for the cops, law enforcement. I was the one running all these drug rings and theft rings and motorcycle theft rings and all this stuff. So they were after me, and I wasn't going to tell on the guy that was with me. But this is what actually happened versus what if you read the articles online and the charges and stuff. I was tasing him and beating him and tasing him with a taser and beating him, trying to get him to admit that he told on me. Well, the guy that was with me had a blackjack, which is like it's not makeshift, like you can buy them. Yeah. It's got like a mechanical spring inside of it with a heavy piece of lead with leather wrapped around it. Yeah. And he hit him square in the forehead with it. Boom, his head explodes. Blood goes everywhere. Was not the intention of that visit, okay? My intention, I actually was friends with the guy and liked the guy, but he had broken the rules. And so I was in there to make sure that he understood that you don't do this. The guy I was with cracked his head open, blood went everywhere. And I'm like, well, at this point we're done. Okay. Like this is over. And after he got hit in the head with that, he admitted that he told on me. That happened. But that, again, that was not the intention of this meeting was to go that serious and that far, but it did. And once it did, I just started grabbing computers and anything that was of value. I told his brother, I said, look, if you guys don't pay us, pay me the money that you owe me, I'm going to be back and that's going to be you. And I walked out. And so they hit me with attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion. That night I got arrested again.
That's go away charges right there.
Those are go away charges, yeah, for a long time. And it was my 6th felony, right? So my 6th time I've been arrested and charged in separate cases. And so I got arrested that night. I went to court basically, and they dropped the attempted murder down to 1st degree because it didn't fit. And so my arraignment, I don't know what they call it. You're a lawyer. I'm not. Although after being in prison for a little while, you actually kind of turn into one. But they dropped it to 1st degree assault. And so I was charged with 1st degree assault, aggravated robbery, and extortion, and a slew of other things. But those were the heaters. And so I'm in there for 2 weeks, and I get bonded out again. And so now I'm out on several $100,000. No, I think it was like $135,000 worth of bonds, if I remember correctly.
Who posted bond?
There's so many rabbit trails I could go all the way down. I just don't know how interesting they are. There's this girl, I think her name was Lisa, that she was just infatuated with me and thought the world of me. And she went and used a credit card to buy a bunch of Xbox 360s that were out at the time, and then sold them and got the money to bond me out.
No kidding.
No one's ever got that story, Phil. You're the first that got that story. That asked that question. There you go. But yeah, I ended up bonding out, and knew immediately that if I go to court, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. So I'm not going to court, which now makes me a fugitive because I missed my court date. Right? I'm on the run. And the plan was, I had a friend, Spider. He and I were supposed to, and Spider's a very bad dude, like very, very bad, Hispanic guy who's part of the Sereno gang. And we were supposed to go down to California with his people and then go into Mexico. That's what they do on the movies. We felt like it was a good idea. Only problem is we never got around to doing it. And so I ended up on a number of occasions, the cops ended up finding where I was, but they didn't have a warrant and they weren't sure. And so there's a couple different ways that I was able to get away when I was on the run.
Yeah.
And that infuriated them. Okay.
This is how long? Like several weeks?
Yeah, it was about 2 or 3 weeks. Yep. And so you had, at the time, there was Officer Mork and Officer Gold-Branson, which were with Colorado Springs Police Department. But then you had Sergeant O'Driscoll, who was the head of the Fugitive Task Force and Crime Prevention Unit.
You still remember their names?
Yes, I do. And there's a story in that
this?
too. This would have been 2007.
Oh.
Yeah, and so Sergeant O'Driscoll and his team, not only was he on the Fugitive Task Force, he was part of the Crime Prevention Unit. So even before I was a fugitive, both Mork and Gold-Branson and Sergeant O'Driscoll and his team, they were dedicated to bringing me in and taking me down. Okay, because of.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, I understand we got somebody on the line. Is that Sparky from Harvest is on the line, JP? Let's go ahead and stick him on there, man. Sparky, how are you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm outstanding. I actually carried this all into a Publix with me here.
Good deal.
You a free plug to a business. But, hey, you have great points about the Russian summit and Russia's current economic standing, which is poor. But one thing I would add that's really poor for them is people in my generation always thought, the former Soviet, the Russian tank army, they're much vaunted. They're so tough. They're going to be impossible to beat. They revealed within a matter of months of starting this war that they're not all that at all.
Yeah.
And like you said, incredibly depleted. They don't stand on the world stage as a military force to be feared anymore. So I think that's a big kick in the.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, yeah, Sparky, you and I came up in the Cold War military where we kind of half expected the Soviet hordes to come through the Fulda Gap, and look at it now. It's really the teeth are out of the bear.
Absolutely. And yeah, I served in the 80s in the GDP for that Fulda Gap. So I know every square inch of the B40 Valley.
Yeah, I bet you do. And back then you had to memorize it. But yeah, it's a whole new day. I mean, I don't want to underestimate that they have no capabilities whatsoever. But the reality is there was all that talk about how they were going to march into Kiev within 4 days. And here we are, 3.5 years later, and they are just getting hammered.
Yeah, I don't think they're negotiating from a position of strength. But Trump, being a bit of a madman himself, he has to realize he's dealing with an even worse madman with Putin. So this is going to be very interesting, I think.
Yeah, but he's our madman.
He is our madman, and I'm happy as can be to have him as our commander in chief. I know.
I am too, man.
Family, our Navy granddaughter, extremely happy.
I am too, man. Hey, Sparky, appreciate you as always. Thanks for your service. Thanks for calling in, buddy.
You and JP have a good weekend. Bye.
Thank you, bud. Hey, JP, before I jump on any more content, do you have any text messages we need to know about?
Yeah, we got a couple that came in here. Oh, by the way, Ken from Harvest had to correct me earlier. He was actually saying speaking about the visuals, being subtle is great as long as you are obvious about it, not as
as long as you are obvious. Okay.
So there you go. By the way, Matt Madison also said, "Hey Phil, do you carry any personal protection when you go to these dangerous cities? What is your choice for personal carry?"
I shall not reveal. So, all right, I've got a couple of personal carries. But what I do on trips is not what I'm going to announce while I'm on the trip. How about that?
Yeah, what to say?
But I have, for times when I have to wear something small, like in an ankle holster, I do have a 380 subcompact that I carry, and then I have a Glock 19 9mm that I prefer when I've got larger carry, and and who knows what else.
Anything that let's just say you had to get on a plane to get over there, so you didn't have anything that would not get you on a plane. I'll just say that.
I got here, didn't I? So I guess not. No, you can actually ship your weapon with you, but you just can't carry it on the plane, obviously. So yeah.
We got Robert from Ardmore said, I heard a reporter ask Trump about rare earth minerals in Alaska the other day. Why in the world would we give Russia anything to end the war? We do not owe them a thing.
Rare earth minerals in Alaska or in Ukraine?
Probably Ukraine, is what he meant to say.
Yeah, we're not going to give him parts of Alaska, I can tell you that. No. Yeah, for those who don't recall, it's a great point. You may remember that a little while back, there was this talk that we were about to sign a major mining deal with Ukraine. This was a piece that I thought was brilliant, and who knows, it may still come back. But what we discovered, what has been discovered in recent years is that one of the largest rare earth deposits in the world is in eastern Ukraine. And it's also very close to the fighting zones in the Donbass region, in Donetsk, in Luhansk. If you look at the map, you'll see it. But these rare earth minerals are filled up with things like lithium and other rare earths that are so incredibly important now for the modern age, for making things like conductor chips and EV batteries and whatever else. Anyway, we were going to negotiate an opportunity where the United States would come in and we would harvest and mine those rare earths and share the profits with Ukraine, which would be huge on both sides. We would then not have to worry about getting it from China. The other thing this did, though, and here's a piece. I'll tell you what, this is a great thing to chase. That's a chess move, and it hasn't come to fruition yet. But the reason why that's a chess move is because Putin does not want to see the United States beginning to occupy militarily on his doorstep, and I understand that. However, if suddenly there was a massive multi-billion, maybe up to $1 trillion mining operation that the U.S. had a vested interest in right next door, it would absolutely mean that if Putin aggressed across the borders even further into our economic interests, that the United States would have no choice but to say something, and he would know that. So here we were looking at A, making money, B, getting away from dependency on China for rare earth minerals, and C, putting something kind of out there that Putin realizes in a backdoor sense creates a U.S. interest that he better not mess with. Now, that has gone by the wayside, but it's also really important, first of all, that we quell the fighting, because the fighting is very close to that region. So more to come on that one, but that's the whole thing about the rare earth minerals.
We got one more text here. Dave from Capshaw. I don't know if you've seen this. There's a old quote coming up during Trump and Hillary Clinton's debate, where she said that if Trump could broker a deal without giving Russia any of Ukraine's land, that she would personally nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. So now people are wondering if somehow Trump was able to pull a rabbit out of his hat today and do such a thing, if Hillary Clinton would live up to what she said and actually nominate him for Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, two things on that. One is he already deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, in my opinion, but he certainly deserves it more than Obama, who got it for being a week in office. Yeah. But the other thing is, if Hillary said it, well, her lips were moving, therefore she was lying. So yes, I would not hold my breath and look for Hillary to be the one to mail in the application with her notary stamp on it. Just saying. All right, listen. Wow, that segment flew by. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna come right back. I still got some stuff on this. I'm trying to school you guys up and make you experts on foreign policy. But stand by. We got more. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
The threat that I posed in running these crime rings or whatever, and But the crime prevention unit and fugitive task force, it was ran by Sergeant O'Driscoll. They ended up they have like unlimited budget, work with the feds, all this other stuff, and so they were on me. And so I got away a couple times, and finally June 19th, 2007, I am in what we deemed my safe house, and Spider had given me a nylon rappelling rope to tie to the bottom of this 70s retro recliner. And he's like, if you got to get out, you go, because the front door is, there's a hallway in these apartments, and then you go from the hallway into the apartment, and the only way out would be down the window, out the window and down on the ground, and it's third story. And I'm like, I'm never going to use that. That's crazy, but I did. Every 18 inches, I tied a double knot, so I could climb like that. And, I woke up June 19th, 2007, not thinking anything, just another day of being on the run. And I was in my living room.
One of your interviews, you said you woke up at 3 p.m.
Yeah, it was that afternoon. And it was that afternoon. I was, again, smoking weed, doing drugs, and, your circadian rhythm gets a little off in that situation. And so woke up that afternoon. It's the weird thing that you remember. I was cooking bratwurst and watching the Chappelle Show. And I looked out the window, and the way that it's set up, there's an apartment building here. And every year I go to Colorado Springs and I take my family. And this year I took my 15-year-old son, and he's heard me tell this story a million times. And I'm like, here's the bill. He's like, this just like the building you said. I said, yeah, no, it's because it's where it happened. Okay, like I'm telling you. And we go and we look, and there's an apartment building right here. This is the apartment building I'm in. And I saw the front end of a cop car sticking out. And I knew, okay, they're here. They're here. And so I kind of frantically, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Well, then all of a sudden I hear boom, boom, boom. Colorado Springs police open up. They kick in the door. And I look, it wasn't my door. So I said, they don't know which apartment I'm in. They're kicking in every single door in the apartment on the third floor. All they knew is I was on the third floor. And so you've been in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're clearing rooms as though this was Afghanistan trying to find me, okay, in an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Boom, okay. I'm like, okay, well, I look at the rope, and this is my only option. And so I kick the screen out, throw my backpack out with all my stuff, and the only piece of furniture in the whole place was the TV and the retro recliner. Okay, that was it. And so I wrap the rope around my hand, and I jump, boom, and it sticks exactly how it's supposed to. It's wedged in the window, and I'm hanging there. Well, what I didn't know, in that back parking lot, there was a surveillance van.
Oh yeah.
That blends in with the rest of it. You wouldn't have known it was a cop car or whatever. It was a surveillance van. And they called it in. Someone's trying to jump out the window. I think we got our guy. And then 50 or 60 cops, they weren't going to miss me again, come swarming from the outside. Like you couldn't see them because they were right here.
So the jig was up at that point.
The jig was up. Yeah, the gun's drawn, get on the ground, as though I had another option. Gravity necessitated that down was the direction I was going to go. And so I unwrapped my hand, fell, and hit the ground. Thankfully, didn't break anything. They put their knee in my back, cuffed me, put me in the back of the cop car, and that was it, June 19th, 2007.
So I'm fascinated by two things in the story.
Sure.
One is you still remember the cops' names.
There's a story for why, but go ahead.
Well, and then I may get back to that story.
Yeah.
But the other is you take your kids and you show them exactly where this happened.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a lot into, you're obviously a different person today.
Sure.
I know the guy who did those things, but I don't know the guy who did those things. Sure. Because you're a different person. But that being said, you're pretty transparent with, and you have 7 kids, by the way.
Yeah.
You're a prolific breeder.
Yes.
But nonetheless, you've got a beautiful family, 7 kids, but you're telling them what's happened in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What can I ask you real quick? What's their response when they hear about Dad before they knew Dad?
This is a great platform to share the gospel with your kids, right? But the older ones, it's a warning. Proverbs talks about the fool. Dad was a fool, right? I was the epitome of the fool, and in Proverbs and really throughout the scriptures it talks about a fool. And I didn't seek wise counsel. I didn't receive instruction. I didn't receive discipline.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And
We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show. I mean, it goes like from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call now, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. Oh, by the way, that's just the radio. That's just all y'all out there in the radio world. But listen, there's a whole lot of y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web every day. And you dial in on the show. You can actually watch us live streaming. And in places like X and YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and our website, rightsidemedia.org. Okay, I know there's also a bunch of y'all that podcast too and catch it after the fact and catch up on things you missed. Here's the bottom line. We know it. We can see it. We are absolutely thankful for the fact that you guys do that. It means the world to us. So thank you very much for getting the show wherever you get it. I gotta jump on something here, JP. Oh, I'll tell you what. You know what? First of all, I need to tell this. We have a new ad running right now, a couple of them for 1819 News. And I got to go ahead and tell you, 1819 News is doing some very cool stuff right now. They are an amazing news network. If you're not familiar, 1819 News is giving you what I would call truth in the news across the state of Alabama. So for those of y'all that are Alabama-centric in terms of what's happening in your backyard, who's running for governor, what are they saying on this, what's the crime, real reporting, 1819news.com. 1819 is also having their annual gala this coming fall. They are a nonprofit, believe it or not, and they're raising money for their operations. And they're bringing in none other than Tucker Carlson to be the keynote speaker. So that's going to be an amazing event. But one of the things they're also doing, you guys, is they're giving you an opportunity. All of you, listen up. I've got an amazing opportunity for you. They are raffling off right now a 2-day, basically it's a 1-day, 2-night excursion to Mar-a-Lago. You heard me, to Mar-a-Lago. It comes with a romantic candlelight dinner. It comes with a spa treatment. It comes with any number of amenities. Mar-a-Lago. It's a $20,000 package. Absolutely amazing. But the fact is, it costs $500 to jump in the raffle, and you can do it between now and November 14th. $500 to win a $20,000 package. You couldn't get a deal like that anywhere, and it's at Mar-a-Lago. So anyway, you want to know more? Go to 1819news.com/raffle. That's 1819news/raffle. So check it out. Our friends at 1819 got it going on. All right. Before I jump into some content here, I got to tell you, I'm going to make one correction. A moment ago, who was that texted in about the mineral resources, JP?
Let me see. That was Robert from Ardmore who texted in.
Okay, Robert, I'm going to go ahead and apologize because now I recognize what you were asking about. I thought you were referring to the mineral rights that I discussed at length a moment ago for the U.S. to mine the mineral rights in the Donbass region of Ukraine. I think what he's talking about is actually there's a story that broke this morning on Newsweek and another one in the Telegraph saying that there is anger. Of course, they're always trying to find the anger reason, right? There's anger out there that Donald Trump is preparing to offer Russian President Vladimir Putin economic incentives to include maybe even opening up access to our natural resources off the Alaskan coast. I don't know that it's true. The story was in the Telegraph, which is not exactly what I would call the best. But Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is reported to be exploring how we can do like some kind of economic trade-offs to give Russia in order to facilitate a ceasefire. I'm going to tell you, first of all, I mean, giving Putin access to rare earth minerals in Ukrainian territories is probably going to be real dicey because that means giving up land. But that's one of the things on the table. But then we have opportunities to tap into natural resources in the Bering Strait. And I don't know that we're going to give that away. Trump did say today, though, that he is not going to be walking away from this meeting with a deal. He does not intend to give anything away. He's not going to also be asking for land to be swapped today. That's what he says. Now, they're already in their meetings, and these meetings are projected to last anywhere from 3 to 7 hours. And by the way, these meetings are not like the kind you see where you sit down and there's like 20 people on each side of the table and they stare at each other and they make formal opening statements. This is supposedly going to be just the two presidents and two interpreters, maybe one or two aides. So this is going to be a very close-held meeting. It's going to be more face-to-face. It's designed for the sole purpose of being able to look each other in the eye, and we'll see where it goes. Trump is a master negotiator. That's why he likes to talk about the art of the deal. Putin, though, is a master conniver. All right? Putin is a long career as a KGB agent in the old Soviet Union. He is not somebody who can be trusted, but he's also somebody who is somewhat desperate. I think, if you get down to it, I think Putin really thought that he would wind up being the hero of the former Soviet Union, that he would launch this invasion into neighboring Ukraine, that he would claim that it was about pushing NATO away from our doorstep and rescuing those ethnic Russians who happened to live in Ukrainian territory. What he really wanted was stuff. He wanted what they had. He needs economics. He needs the agricultural land. He needs the nuclear power plants. He needs the rare earth minerals. He needs all of that. But it didn't quite go the way he planned. If you notice, he lost it within a year of Biden taking office, believing that he had literally on the heels of the Afghanistan pullout. Suddenly you've got Putin massing troops on the border of Ukraine. The whole world could see it happening. And the only thing Joe Biden could do is go, don't. And he did anyway. I think that Putin really thought that he would get this done well before Biden ever had a chance to leave office. He knew that when Biden was in office, that he was able to take the Crimean Peninsula without any trouble. He had no way of knowing that Ukraine, and by the way, I've talked to Army officers who know. They said Ukraine is doing amazing things on the battlefield. Ukraine is being innovative. They are literally fixing stuff in the field that, even U.S. soldiers wind up having to send back to the rear of the shop. They're driving forward. It's their home. That's why they're defending their home. When I went to war, I was half a world away twice. If I got leave, I came out of the war zone. There is no coming out of the war zone for them. They can get in a vehicle and drive 30 minutes and go see mom. That's how close they are. So right now, I don't think Trump's going to wind up giving away anything. But to answer that original question, I apologize for rambling a little bit here. But what it appears was there are reports in the Telegraph that there is a plan to give away U.S. resources for Putin to exploit. And I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time imagining that to be true. JP, you got any more text messages or anything?
No, we're good for now.
Okay. Listen, we're going to wrap this topic up here in a few minutes, but I cannot underscore enough how important it is that this meeting go well, but that it go well in such a way that Putin does not walk away crowing. I don't think Trump wants to make Putin look bad on the world stage, but he's willing to. I don't think Trump is literally trying to bring him here to embarrass him, but he's not going to let him walk in and be the strong man on our turf. There's a thing that happens in shuttle diplomacy. The projection of foreign policy and the foreign power, it has to be accompanied by four things. And I've talked about this at length on the show. When we come back from this break, and JP, go ahead and begin moving us toward break and give me the thumbs up when you're ready, because I'm going to go ahead and take it about a minute early. But we'll take a break. I want to come back, and I want to wrap up this whole segment on the Trump-Putin thing by giving you sort of a serious foreign policy 101. What is happening? How do we do it? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Any of those things, I rejected all of it, and this is where I ended up. And so I don't think it's set. So I've got a 15-year-old, got a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old. Okay. the 15-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 9-year-old are the ones that really wrap their minds around what I'm talking about when I talk about being in prison and, you know, cops chasing me and that kind of stuff. The rest of the ones are younger and they're just like, wow, Dad, you used to be bad, but now you're good. You know, like they don't have any rebut. It will eventually form like their understanding, and it's something that I want them to always know. And the thing I always point them to is like, one, don't be the fool, receive instruction, receive wise counsel, obey God and obey your parents. But also life isn't perfect. And if you stray, you can never stray so far that God can't get you. Right. And if God saved me, he can save anybody. And that's not cliche. It's literally, let me tell you about something. But again, specifically my 15-year-old, I drive him all around Colorado Springs. There's not a corner I didn't commit a felony in that city. Okay. And I drive him and I'm like, I did this here. I did this here. I did this here. I did this here. Like, this is who I was. You need to know and understand that. Right. And so
Proverbs 19, raise up a child the way they should go.
Yep.
When they get old, they won't depart from it.
Yep.
All right, brother. So you, the jig was up. They got you. The officers whose names you still recall were a part of the task force that brought you in, and you're staring at 6 felonies prior before you even got to this point, and now you've got this stack of felonies, and you're looking at 384 years potentially.
Sure.
So you're looking at life in prison at that point.
Correct. Yeah.
But you negotiated.
Yeah.
Did you negotiate for yourself, or did your lawyer do a good job?
It's a mix, but there's a bunch between that. But yeah, it gets into mediation. But there was 9 months between then, and in those 9 months, so they take me to county jail. I'm facing 384 years in prison. At least that's how my public defender described it, because how it works, and the numbers are shaky in my head, but I have to do the math. But either way, each charge that I was charged with gets doubled because I was on probation and on bond, so they can double it, so they enhance it.
Yeah.
And then they times it. They can times it by 4 because it's the habitual criminal.
Yeah.
Right. And so I can break it all down with math or whatever, but the habitual criminal. So if you have 3 felonies, they call that, I'm not going to say what they call it. It's the B word, the little B word. And if it's 4 or more, you get, they quadruple your sentence, and they call that the big B word. Okay. Habitual. Anyway. So I was at 6, so I'm times 4. And then, so they stack, and then they times it by 4, and then that's where that comes from.
This is state, not federal, right?
State, Colorado State. Yep. Colorado State prison.
It didn't wind up being 384 years, but you still got a pretty stiff sentence.
Got a pretty stiff sentence, and you know, the transformation really began in county jail. So I was in county jail for 9 months, basically holding out, and that's part of your negotiations in county jail. I was like, well, I'll just sit here until you bring me a deal that I want, right? And you know, they'll only do that for so long, but it is, you know, some people just want to get in there and they plea and they go to prison, you know, but I was going to, you know, bide my time or whatever. Well, I'm now in county jail thinking I'm going to go do the rest of my life in prison. That's how I'm seeing this. And so I'm in there thinking I have to create this reputation of being a bad dude, so when I get to prison, people won't mess with me. And so I do, and I'm hanging out with all the wrong people in there. I catch one assault case. They put me in the hole, then send me to another unit. I'm there for a little bit. They bring in another guy that had told on one of my friends. And I had to go beat him up really, really bad. Caught another assault case. So I caught 2 assault cases in county jail. So on top of all my other stuff, I caught 2 more assault cases. They were misdemeanor assaults, but they're still assault cases. And they put me in administrative segregation after that. So they're like, okay, you don't play nice with others.
That's solitary, basically.
Solitary,
right?
Correct. Exactly what it is. Yep. Solitary confinement. You're in a cell by yourself for 23 hours a day. You get an hour out to make a phone call and take a shower, you know, maybe do some push-ups or whatever, and you go back to your cell. That's what you get. And I was in there for about 4 months. Okay. And so it was 9 months total, 5 months out, 4 months in ad seg or solitary. And in that stay in solitary, God began to open my eyes. I don't believe he saved me yet, but he opened my eyes to the fact that it was my fault that I was in there. And this is huge. I was just reading a Rick Burgess's new book last night, because I'm going to interview him later today. But it like that was one of the chapters when it talks about just you know, rugged accountability. Like, you know, you have to take accountability for your actions if you're ever going to repent. And this was the beginning of me realizing, you know, because up to that point, I blame my mom for my circumstances. I blame my
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, man, making common sense like a superpower, man. Hey, listen, coming up after the top of the hour break, we're going to do some JP on sports. It's hard to believe we're almost through with 2 hours on a Friday afternoon, but it is a Friday, and we're going to get you all the way to go home time on a Friday afternoon. By the way, I will be on CNN tonight. That's why you're seeing me, if you're live streaming right now, sitting in a hotel room, because I'm doing the show remotely right now. Can't miss an opportunity to be with you guys, but it also means I may have to do it once in a while from outside the usual studio. So yeah, tonight, 9 p.m. Central Time. It is still fluid. I'll be honest with you. They're saying that just because the time change to Alaska, if there's breaking news of any kind at all, and they have to go to one of their, reporters or anchors who's out there in Alaska right now, that it could flex a little bit. Bottom line is, currently I am scheduled to be on Newsnight with Abby Phillip, 9 p.m. tonight on CNN. So check it out. I'm going to wrap this discussion about what's happening right now with the Trump-Putin meeting. Something that I've said on this show several times, and I want to make sure that you guys hear me say that. And by the way, JP just put up a video on the screen. JP, is that live right now, or is that being pulled from another source?
That was earlier, yeah,
Okay.
not live, but yeah, that's that was the scene when they left the wherever they initially shook hands, and now that is where it looks like right now is their meeting.
Okay. By the way, I do note that President Putin and President Trump both sit like men, as opposed to people like Macron and what's his name up in Canada that sit like girls. That's okay. That's an aside. We'll chase that rabbit another day. Did I lose my feed? Are you good? Can you hear me? JP, you still got me? I think you do.
Yes, you do.
Okay. All right, great. I lost my video there for a second. I was making sure it wasn't me going away. Hey, let me break it down one step further though. So here's the thing. I said it earlier, in the projection of foreign policy on the world stage, in the geopolitical premises that we operate in, there is an acronym that you can often study, and you can see what Trump's bringing to bear. And that acronym is called DIME. And I know I've said it before, but take it into account. Now picture it in terms of this Trump-Putin summit. The DIME acronym, D-I-M-E, stands for diplomacy, intelligence. Some people say it's information, but whichever. Diplomacy, intelligence, military, and economic. All four of those have to be brought to bear. All four of those have to be leveraged effectively. All four of them have to be on the table. In terms of certain negotiations, let's say we were meeting with, a smaller, underprivileged nation, you may not necessarily need to see all four aspects of DIME. Not so with Putin. Putin will exploit the gap if one of those is not in place. The Biden administration had no idea how to do that. Trump is coming in, having established all four aspects, so that he comes to the table knowing he has everything it takes, the whole buffet of options, the whole array of possibilities. He is bringing it all with him, all of DIME. What am I talking about? Well, diplomacy, first of all. Diplomacy, there has been a great deal of back and forth. Secretary Rubio is there right now, too, in Alaska, along with Secretary Hegseth, and I believe Scott Bessent, who is our Treasury Secretary. But we are watching right now. Diplomacy has been ongoing, setting the stage. The fact that we even have this meeting is diplomacy. But the real diplomatic piece is the fact that the boss himself is sitting down at the table. The boss himself, Trump, is actually coming to do the eye-to-eye, the face-to-face. That measure of diplomacy puts the full weight of the Oval Office behind whatever is said. There is no carve-out. There is no exception. There is no possibility that someone said something out of turn because it's Trump saying it. That level of diplomacy brings a great deal of gravity and weight to what we're doing. There's that. Then there's the intelligence. I can't tell you what they've got in their hands right now, but I can tell you right now that somewhere in this meeting, there's going to be a sidebar, there's going to be an opportunity, there's going to be a mode in which They let it be known that they can see where Russian troop movements are, or they let it known that they can see what Russian troop capabilities are or are not. They're going to let it be known that they can see, certain things that are like that place you've got over there, the Dhaka on the Black Sea. We know where all these things are. Those intelligence pieces that tell Russia we don't have the ability to hide are going to be huge. Also, intelligence that we can bring to bear. Things that are happening on the battlefield that we can advise against. Don't do this thing because we see it developing. And then there's going to be military. Now, we're not putting the military option on the table for us, but I will say this, over recent months, he has actually watched that we've got a president right now who fully engages the military process when he is pushed to do so. Take a look at the bombing of Iran. The whole world saw it. In Iran, where are they now? They have gotten very quiet. They have. Iran was spanked and sent to their room without dinner. Putin knows that. And I don't think Putin is fearful that we're going to suddenly launch a military strike on Russia. However, what Trump has done, because the whole world knows we have military capabilities that nobody else has. Nobody. What Trump has done is he's made sure that weapon systems have been made available. He's made sure that NATO has been strengthened. He's made sure that NATO nations are spending more of their GDP on their own defense. He's made sure that the NATO alliances recognize and the European Union recognizes that the United States is a player. We will be there, but that we're also not going to just lose our shirt over this thing. And so that means he's also engaged the allies, and they've engaged the military sales process. And it is larger now perhaps than it ever was before. And then there's economics. Perhaps the thing that Putin fears the most, because Trump has already made known, he will come to the table. He will come to the table and have a talk. He will also bring sanctions. And he's proven to the world that he's okay with tariffs. He doesn't care who he tariffs. He tariffed Canada. He tariffed Great Britain. He tariffed Australia. He tariffed our allies. What do you think he's going to do to Putin? He's going to put massive tariffs on. He's going to make sure nobody, by the way, there'll be secondary tariffs. Nobody will buy Russian oil except maybe China. Nobody will be able to buy Russian goods. They will have to become a net importer because they won't be able to export anymore. All of that to say, every aspect of DIME, D-I-M-E, diplomacy, intelligence, military, economics, it's a huge, huge deal. And that is being brought to bear, all four at the same time, at one table. Trump does not walk in half-cocked. I guarantee you he's studied the options. He's got plan A, B, C, and D. Maybe plan Z. I don't know. All I know is he has spent a lifetime walking into high-pressure meetings, negotiating terms that he was prepared for when he got there, fully understanding what it took to leverage his position so that he came out on top. What he's looking for right now is an end to the bloodshed. 1.2 million Russian service members casualty on the battlefield. 250,000 of those are dead. 80,000 Ukrainian troops dead and another 14,000 civilians killed in Ukraine. The bloodshed's got to stop at some point. We're right now looking at this thing lasting as long as World War II. So all that to say, Trump's bringing all aspects of DIME to bear. Go have that water cooler conversation. Go be the expert with your friends. Go tell them that you heard it on Rightside Radio. And I'm just telling you right now, we do not come into this show half-cocked either. We try to bring all the information so you guys have what you need to make sure you can fuel those conversations and be the expert in the room when you do. All right, listen, we're going to wind up taking a break here momentarily. When we come back from this break, we're going to be heading into some JP on sports, which, oh, by the way, also has the best sound effect of all of it. So listen, y'all stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
Blame the judge, I blame the cops,
No more victim.
Exactly. And but what was wild though, I really believed I was a victim. Like I wasn't just saying that to get out of trouble. I really believed it, which is weird. But God, in his mercy, opened my eyes like, no, dummy, this is your fault. Sure, does your mom and your dad play a role? And oh yeah. But your choices got you here. They didn't beat that guy up. They didn't jump out the window. They didn't, sell drugs. They didn't do those things. You did those things. Yeah. And so when I realized that my bad choices created the bad circumstances, that was extremely liberating, because what it meant is that I was free to make good choices that would then create good circumstances. And it was like this epiphany that went off in my brain. And so as much as you can in a cell by yourself, I began to start taking ownership of my thoughts, feelings, behaviors, decisions, all that kind of stuff. So much so that my family really began to because I would have a phone call a week. That's all they would give me. Not that I could call them every day on my hour out if I wanted, but my family would pick up the phone once a week. They'd cut me off. I'd burned every bridge.
Wow.
And in those weekly phone calls, my family started to notice a huge change in my attitude.
Who'd you call?
My grandma Barb.
Okay.
Yep. And I would call my grandma Barb, and usually it would be on Sunday night, and my mom would be over there, and my brother would be over there, and and so they'd pass the phone around or whatever, and I'd talk. But they specifically, my grandma Barb is like, something's changed in him, and everyone, and a lot of people in the family told grandma she was crazy. You just got a soft spot for Brian, whatever. But she's like, no, I feel like something's changed. And
is that your dad's mom or your mom's mom?
It's my mom's mom.
Okay.
Yep. Meanwhile, my dad's mom, the one that was teaching Sunday school for Miss K, Scott Beeson, when he interviewed me, said, who was praying for you? It was a good question. I said, well, Betty Dawson was. And lots of credit goes to her for that. But Grandma Barb, she began to really believe in me and believe that there was a change that had happened, so much so that she, so in this time period, that 4 months I'm in there, I guess about 3 months into my ADSEG stay, my public defender came and said, okay, Brian, the district attorney, she was like really excited to give me this deal like it was a good one.
Your attorney was?
Yes, public pretender. And she comes and says, Brian, this is great. If you sign this deal, you're only going to get 32 years with a crime of violence. And I'm like, amazing. When you're 23, 384 and 32, there's not a lot of difference, right? And so I was not real excited about that. So I called my grandma and I said, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. Because the way it works in Colorado, it's way different than it is in Alabama. On a 32-year sentence with a crime and violence sentence enhancer, which is another way that you have a crime of violence, so they stack your sentences, then they aggravate it, and then they multiply it. So it's basically they're just going to throw everything they can at you if you go to trial. And she explains this to me. If you go to trial, this is what they can do to you. But I tell my grandma I'm going to prison for the rest of my life, and she reaches out to these attorneys. She's got a little bit of money. She doesn't got a lot of money. She's just reaching out to these attorneys. They're like 60 grand, 120 grand, 150 grand to represent, he's got 6 felonies.
I'm underbilling myself apparently as an attorney.
Yes. Well, if you get into criminal law and you got a guy with 6 felonies, you should probably charge more. But they're like, and she's like, well, I can't afford any of that. And I said, go talk to Jeff Barker. Jeff Barker's got a great reputation for being kind of an up and coming new lawyer who's just really, really good. And she goes and sits down with him, and he's like, look, best I can do is $10,000. And if he goes to trial, I need another 10. My grandma says, I don't have another 10. He's like, well, he ain't going to trial, so I'm not that worried about it. Right. So he's like, okay, $10,000. And so he ends up becoming my attorney. And we're a little bit long form, so I'm going to go into some of this because this is really cool. I've never told this part of the story in any media hits. And so, now I'm up against the wall when I try to retain this attorney. The next day, I've got to take my plea or I've got to go to trial. So they've got witnesses showing up for my trial that day. So if I don't take the plea, I go to trial.
You're down to knuckle dragging.
Down to knuckle dragging. And you're an attorney. You kind of know how some of this stuff works. Yeah. The judge says, you don't get a new attorney, buddy. No, he's not your attorney. Your attorney is this lady, and you either sign the plea or you go to trial. So I'm like, my grandma's like, my new supposed to be attorney's like, and the public defender comes over and she's like, hey, I don't know how this happened, but one of the witnesses in the case got stuck in traffic or whatever, and she's not going to be able to be here. She has to get back to work. And so they had to delay it, and they punted for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, I'm able to have him retain, and he gets me into a mediation hearing. And in the mediation hearing, this is really cool too, negotiation tactics. they were never able to. So what a mediation is, they have a retired judge. His name was Judge Toth. I'd be in one room with my attorney, is how it's supposed to work. And it's supposed to be at the courthouse. And I'm in one room, the district attorney's in another room. I'm with my attorney, and Judge Toth goes back and forth. Okay. And I think I should get 8 years. Well, we think you should get 32. Well, I think I should get 10. I think it's basically like horse trading. Okay. Well, we couldn't get our calendars to line up to get it done at the courthouse, so she had to come to the county jail on Martin Luther King Day on her day off. Okay, and she's in there in her pajamas. The deputy district attorney, she's in there in her pajamas. She's absolutely pissed that she's there, and I can see this. I'm like, she didn't want to be here. I've got 384 years. I've got nowhere to go, and she obviously doesn't want to be here. So I just kept dragging and dragging and dragging.
We discovered years ago the best time to buy a car is right before the staff leaves for a holiday weekend.
Yeah, it's like go, go, go.
So you're in that mode right now. All right, she's in her pajamas.
She's in her pajamas. It's snowing outside, and she just doesn't want to be there. And so I keep dragging and keep counteroffering, and she loses, and she says, "That's it. 15 years with the crime of violence. That's my final offer. No way with the violence in your crime and the assault cases that you've caught in county jail, these 2 extra assault cases, will I ever drop this crime of violence?" And so on a 32-year sentence with a crime of violence, you're going to do 24. Okay, so that matters. It's a huge, like, you're going to do more of your time.
Yeah.
And then on a non-violent, you're going to do maybe a third of your time or less. Okay.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in not the Rightside studios. I'm safely ensconced in a remote bunker in our nation's capital right now, preparing to go on CNN tonight. But yeah, nonetheless, we still have all the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. So, by the way, got a text a little while ago. Apparently, Allie from Athens was concerned. She heard my voice get a little raggedy there for a minute. Allie, thank you for the home remedies. All it really was I was choking on a bite of Pop-Tart. That's all it was.
I can confirm. I saw him eating the Pop-Tart in the break. So.
That's true. I was mowing it down real quick right before I came back on the air. I was traveling. I haven't had lunch. All right. Hey, listen, let's just jump on in. Let's set aside politics and policy and geopolitics and all of it. And let's do something we do every single Friday, brought to you by Inspire Advisors, by the way. Our buddy JP is actually a guru on sports. And so every single Friday, we do a segment called JP on Sports. First segment is called The 3 and Out, top 3 stories as he sees it in sports land. And then we come back from the break and do the second round, which is called the 2-minute warning, buzzer and a timer, 2 minutes on each story. He also, oh, by the way, has the best sound effect of all the sound effects, courtesy of sorority girls from Auburn. Hit it, buddy.
JP on Sports!
All right, man. JP on Sports. Take it away. Number 1, what you got?
All right, so the top story in the sports world today, and by the way, I'm going to go ahead and warn Wolverine Dan, if he's listening, he may not like where I go with this. But so the NCAA, after 2.5 years, has finally come to its conclusion on their investigation into Michigan football and the cheating scandal, the sign stealing scandal, where they ended up winning the national championship. And let's just say, okay, so first, you wonder, okay, well, do they have to vacate any wins from that season, where they blatantly got cheating? No. Do they have to vacate their national championship that they won while they were, caught blatantly cheating? No. Okay, well, at least, they're under a postseason ban for this year, or maybe even 2 years, because, they were blatantly caught cheating. No, not that either. What they end up doing is they're fining Michigan $20 million, which may sound like a lot, but to Michigan, who's worth over $1 billion, is really not much. So Connor Stallions, the coach who was doing the sign stealing, got an 8-year show cause penalty if he were to enter back into college sports and coaching, which right now he's an offensive coordinator in high school. football. And Jim Harbaugh also got a 10-year show cause penalty if you ever decide to go back into college football. Sharon Moore then got an extra game suspension to the already 3-game suspension or 2-game suspension Michigan was self-imposing on him this year. And then that was pretty much it. That's pretty much all Michigan got in terms of a punishment for, as I say again, blatantly caught cheating, and won a national championship off of it. And to the response, the NCAA put out a statement as to why they didn't give Michigan a postseason ban this year. They said, well, we didn't want to punish coaches and players that actually were involved in the direct cheating. And my response to that is, then don't take 2.5 years to investigate it. You know, like you take 2.5 years, which all the evidence was already on Twitter within like 2 weeks of the Connor Stallion story breaking. The video of him with glasses and a hat on the Central Michigan sideline stealing signs for an earlier game for Michigan was already on the internet. The message boards had all of the evidence apparently before the NCAA even knew what was going on. And by the way, Netflix also did a documentary with Connor Stallions himself, where he openly talked about how he cheated and the methods he used, how he was taught when he was a coach at Navy how to do it, and yada, yada, yada. And the NCAA 2.5 years later, it's like, oh yeah, they were caught cheating, but what can we do? We don't want to punish the poor players. It's like this. If you could encapsulate the NCAA in one story, it's this one. They have no teeth, they have no power, and Michigan, they won a national championship, cheated throughout the whole season, and they just got to pay $20 million, pretty much paid off the NCAA, and then they can keep the national championship and keep going. So now, I guess the precedent is set. You can cheat, and then the NCAA would just make you kind of pay a little fine, and then that's it.
A little fine. That's not a little fine to you and me, but yeah, for them, that's the cost of doing business. That's a hiccup.
Hey, if it costs $20 million to cheat and win a national championship, I will help write a check for Alabama to do that next year. We'll cheat. We will cheat like you've never seen before. So I don't. That is a travesty in my opinion that the NCAA let them get away with that, and it's nonsense.
Don't beat around the bush. Tell us how you feel.
I think part of it is because Michigan was Saban's last game ever that season. So yeah.
Oh wow.
So
all right, that's one. What's two?
All right, so last week I talked about this record-breaking, groundbreaking deal that the NFL made with ESPN. Well, now we have another deal this week that may have even topped it, because the UFC has now signed a deal with CBS that is worth $7.7 billion over 7 years. And it pretty much gets rid of the pay-per-view model, because now if you get Paramount Plus, which is CBS's streaming platform, for $30 a year, you get every UFC event. So now you don't have to pay $80 for a UFC pay-per-view, because the way it used to be was you had to have ESPN Plus, and then you had to pay on top of that $80 for UFC pay-per-view. So now the pay-per-views are already in with the Paramount Plus deal. You have Paramount Plus, you have all of the UFC events, including the pay-per-view events. And like I said, this is a groundbreaking deal, because it could have a crack in the armor for the pay-per-view model for combat sports across the board, because we've already seen boxing have like a couple of Jake Paul events in Netflix where there was no pay-per-views. So it could be the model moving forward where these combat sport leagues, they just get a deal with a company, and the streaming platform for that company just automatically has it involved. So that's a major step moving forward. Also, it gives you a bit of a look into how much the UFC has gone mainstream. UFC's past pay-per-view or deal with ESPN was $1.7 billion over 7 years. This one is $7.7 billion over 7 years with CBS. So that is and only a 5-year difference there. That's just how much UFC has gone mainstream. So that is the Netflix or the NFL deal we thought couldn't be topped. I think the UFC just topped it within a week.
And UFC is Dana White, right?
As Dana White, yes, correct.
Yeah, that guy, man. I mean, you tell you what, is he a billionaire yet?
Oh yeah, he's well on his way to be a billion. His net worth is currently, let's see, as it's loading. Yeah, he's almost a billionaire. $500 million. But I'm sure that may be going up a little bit after this deal. So
no kidding. Wow. Okay. All right. That's two. What's three? We got about 3 minutes. What do you got?
So if you guys, any NFL watchers out there, noticed that during the George Floyd stuff in 2020, the NFL decided along with the NBA, to put these end racism signs on the NFL field. So that ever since, if you look in the end zone in the back, the white, part of the end zone behind the logo says end racism. Today, the NFL has just renewed that. You must continue to put end racism. Oh, well, let me excuse you. You have a list of options here. You can either do end racism, stop hate, choose love, or inspire change as a part of the end zone. But every single team in the NFL, as of today or yesterday, actually, the NFL is making them continue to do this. So
this is required.
Yes, it's required. Each NFL team has to put one of those 4 in the back of their end zones. And it's one of those things where you can tell the NFL dug its grave when it first decided to do this, because now, if they remove end racism, the riots of, oh, what? You're removing end racism, even though, like I said, they did this in 2020 during the riots and stuff. But now they're in a position, they're scared to take it down because of the image that would put out. So the NFL's stuck. We may be in like 2075 and continuing to have end racism in the back of the that's just, it's hilarious to me. But hey, that they dug that grave, that they made that bed, they got to lay in it. So that's
no doubt. That's okay. It's a virtue signal.
Yes.
But if it makes somebody feel good, okay. But choose love, inspire change. It doesn't feel like an NFL game messaging, does it?
It does not. Definitely.
I'm pretty sure that's not the way the halftime speeches go in the locker room.
No, guys, we need to inspire change. Stop hate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And listen, you've been a little rough out there. How about you choose love for once, please?
Choose love. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, that's first round of JP on Sports, brought to you by Inspire Advisors. I'll tell you more about Inspire Advisors here momentarily. But in the meantime, let's take a break right now. We'll take that break. We'll come right back for round 2, the 2-minute warnings. We'll be right back.
So I'm heavy focused on that crime of violence. Like, okay, we got her down to a decent year range, and I don't know where this came from. It had to have been a God thing. And I looked at my lawyer. I said, you don't tell Judge Toth anything. I said, you walk in there to that district attorney, go tell her that, my client doesn't want to end up in he wants to change his life. He doesn't want to end up in a maximum security prison with swastikas all over his face. He wants to change his life. He's willing to give you a year if you drop the crime of violence. And the way their thing works is like, oh, I get 16 instead of 15, cha-ching. And all of a sudden, all that, conviction about crime of violence just went out the window.
So she got a trophy, basically.
Correct. Yeah. And so I gave her the year, which is that's good for her. So she drops the crime of violence, and I get 16 years with no crime of violence is what I ended up getting sentenced to. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that is crazy. You are into sales.
Yeah. And I was the happiest person ever to be sentenced to 16 years. Like, yay, 16 years in prison. But again, everything's relative when you face it to 32 or 384. Yeah.
All right. You said in one interview I saw with you, I've forgotten, it's some folks that you had known, but they have their own podcast, Emily and somebody else. I've forgotten the guy's name, the husband and wife team.
Chris and Emily, yeah.
Yeah, Chris and Emily. But at one point you said in that solitary confinement where you began having that epiphany about accepting responsibility for your own actions and you're not a victim of that, you felt like God had thumped you.
Yes.
But you still weren't there yet.
Yeah.
But then you started meeting and hanging out with a guy who, in your words, what I saw was he began to drop seeds of the gospel in your life.
100%.
And was that in prison? Was that in county jail? Where was that? That was prison.
Yeah. So here I am. God thumps me on the head and shows me it's my fault.
Right.
Shortly after that, I get into this negotiation hearing.
Right.
My heart's softened to the idea of God and him working in my life.
Because he has been.
Because he has been. And then I get 16 instead of 32, so now I'm looking at getting out in 5 years instead of 24 or never. So I knew God had moved. And so I'm like, okay. But I was always open to God. I always prayed to God. I always knew that God was real. I had some experiences in church growing up that were like bad experiences, but good experiences. I don't know how to really describe it. Like, these people had something that I wanted, but I also saw how judgmental and kind of hypocritical that they were. Yeah. And so I was just like, but I knew that God was real. And so I prayed. Like, when I was a kid, I prayed. Through my addiction, I prayed. When I was a fugitive, I prayed a bunch. And when I was in county jail, I prayed even more. Wondering about what my sentence was. I knew God was real. But I didn't understand how Jesus factored into it, and no one ever really taught me about Jesus. So I was agnostic. I knew that God was there, but I didn't understand how it worked, right?
Yeah.
And so I get to the first prison I get to is called Huerfano County Correctional Center, which is in Walsenburg, Colorado. You go in there, you got in Colorado you wear greens, and so you got your greens on, and you've got a couple extra pairs of greens and a couple pairs of state issued underwear, like a cup and a spoon. And you walk into your unit, and the thing slams behind you, and you're now in your unit. It's got 120 guys in there. And you're like, okay, what's about to happen? Because the new guy comes in, fish, fresh fish, and here comes this big, huge dude with a Semper Fi tattoo on his arm.
Oh, former Marine, huh?
Yeah. Well, always a Marine, they say. True. I've made the mistake of calling him a former Marine. I've been corrected 17 times. So. But he walks up and reaches out and shakes my hand. He says, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian, and this is a faith pod." And so all the movies that were going off in my head about the doors slamming and someone coming up to stab me having to fight to see if I was tough, like there's all the things that I thought coulda, woulda, shoulda. But this big, burly, huge dude who definitely could have beat me up is like, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian. This is a faith pod." That wasn't on the, on the prediction list. Correct. Yeah. Not on the bingo card. Yep. And I'm like, okay, Charles, what is a faith pod? And he goes, "Man, we do discipleship in here. And, we do Bible studies. We do discipleship. And I take seminary classes on the weekends. And, we do praise and worship every single morning." And they did. And
he's saying words you don't even know.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have to get out of here immediately. That was my response to that.
Put you in the cult ward.
Get me out of here. You ever seen Happy Gilmore when? Anyway, there's the scene with the lady in the old folks' home where she falls and get me out of here. But that's how I felt. I was like, I got to get out of here. But it's prison, and it turns out you can't get out of there. Who knew? And so I was stuck, and it was a good thing. And Charles really just became my friend. He didn't browbeat me. He didn't, he wasn't over the top. He just
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, appreciate all of y'all being dialed in with us. Thank you so much. I am operating remotely right now from I like to say a bunker, but it's really a hotel room in our nation's capital. Going to be on CNN tonight, 9 p.m. Appreciate y'all checking in if you would. That being said, it's round 2 of JP on Sports. We call it the 2-minute warning. I've got a timer with a buzzer, and I'm going to set it right now. JP, first story, 2 minutes, go.
Well, Alabama has officially announced that Ty Simpson is the starting quarterback for this upcoming season. Not much of a surprise. It's kind of been known for most of the offseason that Ty Simpson was separating himself from the rest of the group. This was the top QB battle in the SEC and one of the top nationwide. Down in the plains at Auburn, it's been pretty settled that Jackson Arnold is the guy. So across the board, SEC, this was really the main quarterback battle. Ty Simpson finally getting the starting job after waiting 5 years. He sat behind Bryce Young and Jalen Milroe, waited his turn, didn't go in the transfer portal, and it's ending up paying off for him, and he's going to be the starter for Alabama this upcoming season. However, Ryan Grubb, the new offensive coordinator, actually said, Ty Simpson was the best, quarterback across the board this whole offseason. However, the guy who improved the most this offseason was Keelan Russell, who is the 5-star quarterback freshman, who is the top recruit to ever come to Alabama. So that's, if you're an Alabama fan, that is the best scenario. Ty Simpson being the best guy, and then Keelan, the freshman, improving the most in the offseason, I would say. However, a lot of people are raising questions. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? With the post-Saban era where the starting quarterback is being announced 2 weeks before the first game. I mean, heck, when Saban was coach, it could be the national championship and the starting quarterback is not even safe. We saw that firsthand in 2017. And, it'd be 5 weeks in, 6 weeks in, and Saban saying, we'll just keep playing the best guy. Who knows? Is it a bad thing that DeBoer is already showing his cards before the first game even comes up? Or is this even bigger chess where Ty Simpson's not even going to be the starting quarterback week 1. It's actually going to be Kalen Russell after he announced it. We come either way, but who knows? Yeah, I don't know if I read that much into it. It is interesting though how differently DeBoer and Saban have gone about announcing starting quarterbacks before the season. Saban didn't want the press to know; he didn't really care. But I guess it's a new era with DeBoer here in T-Town.
Oh, wow. Okay, so by the way, you said, there's a timer. Hit it. There we go. All right. But I got to ask you real quick before we go to the next one. You're saying Kalen is the top player to ever come to Alabama?
The top ranked recruit to ever come to Alabama.
Did not know that.
Yes.
Okay, that's very cool. All right. As an Auburn fan, I don't care. Anyway, moving on. Next story, go.
So, the Shedeur Sanders story was massive with this past NFL draft because he slid all the way to the 5th round. Some people had him as the top quarterback going in this past draft class, and some people were saying it was racism. People didn't want a confident young black quarterback to come and be the star of their team. Deion Sanders scared him away, whatever. I don't think any of those are true, but he had his first preseason game, and he played very well. He went 14 to 23, 138 yards, and 2 touchdown passes. Here's the thing, though, okay? They're already taking victory laps. It's a preseason game, and people are already saying, everybody's regretting it now. Everybody's going to pay. Look what he did the preseason game. Everybody looks stupid now, don't they? I just like to remind them that this is a preseason game where I think the competition Shedeur played in college was probably just as good, if not maybe a little bit better than what was being shown out there on the preseason. I would say it's about equal to what he saw at Colorado. If he's gonna be the guy, which right now the depth chart, the Browns put out has him as the 4th quarterback right now, so he's not really going to see the field going into the NFL season. But I find it funny though. It's funny that people are already taking victory laps. Nike put up a post about him, with one of their catchy phrases up there. I would think it's a little bit too early to be taking a victory lap on Shedeur Sanders just yet. I would hold off just a little bit. I want him to do well. I want Shedeur to do awesome, but I don't know. It's just funny to me that the preseason game was already calling people and having people say the NFL teams made a mistake passing on Shedeur Sanders. It's like let's wait. Let's take a breath. Let's wait a little bit.
I just hope with about 10 seconds left here, I just hope that Shedeur Sanders finds a measure of humility. Somewhere in the mix.
If sliding to the 5th round doesn't do it, then something I don't know what will. I don't know what will, Joe.
And there's your time. All right, resetting the clock. We got time. Sure, go ahead. Time, 2 minutes, go.
Rush Probst is back, people.
Oh, my gosh.
He's back in high school football. Listen, the controversial coach who made his fame at Hoover High School back in the early 2000s. He's bounced around from school to school, had controversy to controversy, both in the coaching field, but also his personal life, being aired out. But now that Coosa Christian, which is actually right down the road from us here in Gaston, they suspended their coach for violations that the coach made this past season. And what's a better way to show that you're distancing yourself from the corruption? You're going to do things the right way, the straight and narrow, and you're going to promote Rush Probst to be your head coach for this upcoming season. I find that funny to me. I mean, he is the co-head coach technically at Coosa Christian, or was, so they're promoting internally. So I understand if you want to promote internally to have a coach that the players already know, but I just find that a little ironic. You suspend your coach for this year for violations, and you're gonna promote Rush Probst to be your coach. Who knows? Maybe he's left that his old coaching style behind. He's ready to do things the right way now. But part of me just thinks that's probably not true. He was at Pell City, I think, was a school in 2023, and this is his first time coaching since that. He hasn't won a state championship since 2005 at Hoover. So we'll see. But I know one thing: it's going to be, if you're a Coosa Christian player, I think the media is going to be packed out every single game you play. So maybe they like that. Maybe they like having all the attention. It may be fun, but who knows?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I know Coosa Christian pretty well. I've been over there many times. And it's a very small school. It's a school that's got great people, but you're talking about the guy who used to have his own reality TV show called Hoover U, and had basically a 7A school that had facilities better than most colleges, and now he's playing for a very small private school in Gadsden, and so wow, that's just whole different world.
Oh yeah, quite the bit different world. But like I said, I mean, if I'm a player, I love it.
All right, do we have time? What do we got? We got
about 30 seconds.
Take it. Overtime. Go.
All right, well, we got the playoffs for the PGA Tour continuing to go on here. Last week, we had Justin Rose pulling off. He actually won in a playoff. I think it was a 3 or 4 round playoff where they had to play the 18th hole over and over and over and over between JJ Spawn and Justin Rose because they kept tying. But eventually, Justin Rose came out with the win. And then this week, we got Robert McIntyre, who is currently out in front at 14 under. Scotty Scheffler behind him at 9 under. Big storyline, Rory McIlroy back this week after not playing last week, and he's currently sitting tied at 12th at 4 under, or 11 4 under. And so we'll see. We'll see who can make a run, and next week is the final round.
All right, good job, man. That's JP on sports. Listen, we're going to take a break right now. Come back for the final half hour. Get you to go home time on a Friday afternoon. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
He was my friend, and you get in there, you don't have coffee, you don't have soups, you don't have, sweats, you don't have any of that stuff. And so he gave me, all those things. Like, here, you need some of this, you need some of this. Hey, if you need anything, let me know. So he just became my friend, and his conversation would turn to a subject or a situation. He would kind of Socratically ask me questions.
He would weave Jesus into it.
And he would weave Christ into the questioning and say, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? And I remember one of the funniest ones he did was, this is pre-saved Brian in prison, okay? And I'm talking about, girls and having sex with girls and all this other stuff. And Charles just looks at me, he's like, but wouldn't it be like so much more beautiful if like you just didn't have sex again until you got married? And I died laughing so hard and just pointing at Charles like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But you know what? Flash forward, that's exactly what I ended up doing. Yeah. And it was because of that question that happened before I got saved that Charles did. So or go ahead.
No, I got to say, part of my weird resume is that I spent 7 years in full-time ministry with an organization called Young Life.
Yeah.
Which is headquartered in Colorado Springs, by the way. I spent time in Springs because of that.
Yeah.
Love that city. Probably back when you were actually messing up things. But we called it relational evangelism.
Yeah.
It was earning the right to share your faith is what we called it.
Yeah.
And it was not relationship, with a catch. It was relationship with purpose. And also, oh, by the way, if you don't love Jesus, I'm still going to love you.
Yeah.
So it was true friendship, but we earned the right to share our faith, we called it. And there's a passage of scripture just came to me while we're sitting here talking, hearing you say it. I believe it's in Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians, that says, because we loved you so much, we were content not just to share the gospel, but our very lives as well.
Yeah.
Meaning the gospel's really important, but I'm even going to share who I am in a relationship with you. And that's where Charles was, it sounds like.
Yep, 100%.
Very cool. All right, so you're hanging out with Charles.
Hanging out with Charles. We're at Walsenburg about a year in. I don't remember exactly how it breaks down. He gets shipped to Sterling Correctional Facility. So I'm there on my own. Huerfano County Correctional Center in Walsenburg was a private prison. So it's like Corporations Correction of America, or I guess they call it some other company now, Core Civic. It was one of those prisons, and it got shut down. And so I get moved to Benton County, which is another Core Civic prison. It was Corrections Corporation of America at the time. I'm there for 6 months, and then they moved me to Canyon City, to Arrowhead Correctional Center, which is like Camp Cupcake, okay? And so they moved me to Camp Cupcake, and they didn't know they made a mistake. With my sentence and how much time I have, I'm not allowed to be at Camp Cupcake, right? I'm not supposed to be. And I'm there for like 2 months, and it's up in the mountains in Canyon City, Colorado. I'm like, man, I can get used to this. It was like God gave me a little vacation, and then once they figured it out, they ended up shipping me to Sterling Correctional Facility. I walk out on the yard at Sterling Correctional Facility, which is a massive prison, right? There's 4 separate yards, so I didn't have to land on the yard with him. But I walk out on they call it the 20s yard where I was, and boom, there's Charles.
How about that?
Right away. So
back together again.
Yeah.
Pick up where you left off.
Yeah, and he was a softball coach. That was his way of doing evangelism. He put together a softball team, and it was like, is it? I remember how shocked I was when I walked into a medium security prison. So there's like killers and everything in this prison. And there's a softball team which requires these things called metal bats. I'm like, they have metal bats in prison? Like, that seems counterintuitive.
Who thought this was okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he did. He coached a softball team, and I was the third baseman, and that was his way that he would evangelize guys. And so I get to Sterling, he's like, hey, what was great about Sterling is they had grass. So I was excited to play softball there, but that's neither here nor there. And so he's like, man, you want to play softball again? Yeah. So he's just doing the same thing, friends, ministering, planting seeds. And he goes, man, Brian, you got parole coming up in a couple of years. You really need to get you some certificates for the parole board. I'm like, great. And he's like, well, I'm the chaplain's assistant. I can get you into some programs. And the chaplain's office was over all the programs, secular or otherwise. I'm like, cool, yeah, get me in. And he gets me into them, and it's they're faith-based programs.
Ah.
And so I got in there, and I'm like, Charles. So I get in.
That gospel in on you again.
He did. And but it was really interesting. And I get in there, and the first program was like Kumbaya, come as you are. You know, it was very, it was not very high theology.
Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This one, goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. All the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn. Straight across the line from there to what we now call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just radio. That's just all y'all in radio land. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, dialing in and live streaming the show every day. We can see the numbers. We know you're there. Places like X and YouTube and Facebook and Rumble and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then, oh, by the way, a bunch of y'all podcast the show after the fact and catch up on what you might have missed. And listen, bottom line is this. Wherever y'all catch the show, it means the world to us. Wherever you choose to catch this show, the fact that you do is important to us. We would not be able to do this without you. Thank you so much. I say that every time because I mean it. All right. Hey, listen, I got to real quickly tell you. So that last segment we just did right there, every Friday we do it, JP on Sports. So JP can run down through this whole sports lexicon, but I want you to know it's also sponsored for you by Inspire Advisors. Inspire Advisors. Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors are epic good at doing what is known as biblically responsible investing. Meaning, yes, they can help you manage your portfolio. Yes, they can help you get a good return on your investment. But yes, they also have developed the ability to help you make sure that wokeness and anti-Christian dogma is not wrapped up in the companies that you may be investing in. It's a crazy thing. If you really look into where some of your portfolio might be, you may be finding out you're investing in companies that don't stand for the things you stand for. So, Inspire Advisors. Yes, indeed. Sponsor of JP on Sports every Friday. Inspire Advisors. You can find them on their website at moneypatternwealth.com. That's www.moneypatternwealth.com. They can help you with learning how to do it. They can help you with actually doing it. They want to help you manage for your retirement. Inspire Advisors. Paul Breyer, moneypatternwealth.com. Check them out. And thank you very much for sponsoring Inspire Advisors. We appreciate you. JP, come on in there with some text messages, brother. You got the text lines. I can't see them. You got anybody texting in?
Well, yeah, we got a handful of them here. Well, first we're going back. Jeff from Indiana says, "Hey, Phil, I hope you're wearing your sandwich-proof vest on today because you don't know how many assault sandwiches there is out there on the streets. I just wonder if they're going to go after Subway for manufacturing and distributing assault sandwiches."
Assault sandwiches. I will go ahead and tell you, I stole your line today, Jeff, just so you know. Assault sandwiches. I posted a piece on Twitter today saying the Democrats were trying to ban assault sandwiches nationwide because they're unsafe. But full credit to Jeff from Indiana for that one.
Next, we got David from Huntsville talking back about when we were talking about Hillary Clinton's quote about nominating President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize if he somehow pulls off a deal. And David from Huntsville said she only said that because she's scared right now.
Yeah, you know what? I think they're all scared. You know, Nancy Pelosi, being serious here, Nancy Pelosi this morning was doing one of her kind of rambling, kind of like the nervous lady in the microphone. And she was doing this thing saying that Trump is an idiot. I think she actually said idiot. And he has no business going to Alaska to meet with Putin. What an asinine thing to say. Yeah. He absolutely should be this is exactly where he should be. This is where, if you get down to it, someone else should have been maybe, 3 or 4 years ago. Because we are looking right now at a bloodbath in Eastern Europe. And Trump is determined to try and quell it. And he's taking a personal vested interest in meeting face to face with the architect of the chaos, and that's Vladimir Putin. So this is where we need him to be.
Yeah, and I'm that Axios article too. Apparently, when Trump had a call with a bunch of European leaders and Zelensky on Wednesday, and apparently in the call, according to Axios, French President Macron said, "Well, giving Putin a meeting is a very big thing to give him." It's like, okay, well, now we know why this is the mess it is. Let's let somebody come in and fix y'all's mess for you. So we're not going to do it your way, because your way has. We've seen what that's gotten us. So
yeah, so that whole notion. By the way, it's not like we're meeting with Pol Pot. It's not like we're meeting with, some third world dictator, some tin pot cartel, boss. This is, whether you like it or not, Russia is a player on the world stage, and they have been for well over a century. So all said and done, you can't just go ahead and say, well, we're just never going to talk to you. If talking will end the bloodshed, then start the talking.
Yeah.
It's not by the way, there's a difference between appeasement and discourse. All right. He's not going in there to appease. He's not going in there to try and bribe you. Would you please? He's not going in there to look at him and go, don't. Because, what we saw was feckless foreign policy over the last 4 years. Now what we're seeing is the art of the deal. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
We got Chris from Starrett, Alabama says, "Why is sign stealing considered cheating anyways? Do better. Make sports fun again." Okay. No, listen. Okay. When I played in high school, I was on the defensive side of the ball, and I've watched football. I played Madden. I played college football 25, 26 video games. Anybody who knows anything about football knows if you know what's coming, if you're on the defensive side of the ball, let's just say that's a little bit of an advantage. Okay. Like if they're throwing a pass, a deep pass, you're going to call cover 4. If throw something shorter, cover 2, something. If you're the running, you're going to blitz. Like, that is an amazing advantage. And I know the people who say, well, if you know what's coming, you still got to make the tackle. You still got to make the play. Okay. Well, these are Power 5 Division I college football players. I'd hope that if they know what's coming, they can make the play and make the tackle. So no, if you win a national championship and go undefeated, which Michigan probably could have anyways if they didn't sign steal, that doesn't matter, because that advantage from knowing what's coming is such a big one. They have to be punished somehow.
Oh, okay, all right. So let me play devil's advocate on this. Mm-hmm. Tell me your thoughts on this, because who was it that had that text? Was that Chris from Starrett?
Chris from Starrett, Alabama.
Yeah, Chris from Starrett, Alabama. His point though was, if you can't do a better job of hiding your signs, then you deserve to have them stolen. So how do you answer to that? That if they can see your signs, if they know what's going on, it may be because you also gave it away. So how do you respond to that?
This was an Astros level, this was a sign stealing operation. This was Connor Stalions was
Astros level.
His job was literally just to watch film, go to the games. He bought tickets to go to the games and have his eyes on the coaches, and he literally was studying to be in reconnaissance in the Naval Academy. He was using that level of education and translated it over to football to steal signs. And hey, the argument is, if your sign's able to get caught and then fine, okay, if that's your argument, well, then Michigan's got to do a better job and not get caught sign stealing. So now that they got caught, now they got to get punished. It's like, if you're going to play that game, fine, but if you're going to get caught, you got to get punished too. So I don't know. It's ridiculous that they didn't get punished.
Okay, so what you're saying is everybody does it, but if you get caught, you deserve to get punished.
Exactly. If you're going to play that game, you got to pay the punishment. So.
Okay. All right. What else you got in the text lines?
Brandon from Madison says that the NCAA hit Bama hard in the 90s and 2000s for way lesser crimes. Makes me mad. Yeah, that's true. It was way less than what they were doing there.
But it's Michigan. Well, you know what the other problem is, though? Like you said, it was 2.5 years after the fact.
Yeah, so they're like, oh, we can't punish these new kids. And well, then don't take that long to but you're the NCAA. Like, come on. You get better than that.
That's pretty weak.
Paul Bryant from Athens, talking about the end racism stuff, said, just one more reason I've tuned out of NFL games. Yeah.
That's one of the most disappointing things I think I've seen in modern years is even sports and the arts. It's like you're not even allowed to just go and have the diversion, the joy of watching it, because that's what it is. It's supposed to be a diversion. It's the people who play or perform who do it for the love of what they do, and maybe they're making a good living at it. but it's the people who attend that are just looking for a diversion from all the minutia of life to just cheer and scream and laugh and have a good time, you know, and then they get everything politicized. And I really look back on it and think when Colin Kaepernick did what he did by kneeling down, that's when everything began to go south.
Well, that's why you can't kowtow to begin with, because once you do that, then you can't take it away. Because now you put it there in the first place, and now if you back off at all, then people are going to go, it's they get what they deserve. So
they got what they deserve. You got any more in there?
Just two more. It says,
right,
Matt from Madison says, "Hey JP, whatever happened to that girls basketball league you once spoke of, the WNBA, I believe?"
They're still out there. We heard about them somewhere.
Well, their biggest story is objects getting thrown on the court, so that's kind of where they're at.
Yeah, that's tough. We're not going to deal with that one today.
And John from Huntsville, last text says, "JP, doesn't matter who the quarterback of Alabama is because Auburn has the best starting quarterback in all of college football." That's what he says.
Well, now we hope at the end of the season we can still say that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. All right, we're taking the last break of the day here on a Friday afternoon. Coming right back. You guys stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back.
Rigorous. It was just like, we want to love on you. But in that program, there was like 5 or 6 other guys that were like Charles, guys who'd been down for like 20 years that were men, and they were steeped in the word. And I got around those guys, and I'm just like, geez, like I'm drawn to this, but I can't admit it. And so that program ends, and I went to Charles. I'm like, hey man, I think I need some more certificates for the parole board. And he's like, okay,
wink, wink, nod, nod.
And so he gets me into this next one. Well, it was very high theology, and it was very rigorous, and it was very much, this is what the Word of God says. It's called The Truth Project with Dr. Del Tackett, which is Christian Worldview and Apologetics.
I got it written down. I was going to ask you about it.
So good. Like, I highly recommend everything Del Tackett does. Everyone should just go and look at all of it. I mean, he did Answers in Genesis. He does The Truth Project. He's got, so many great things. Watch, but what this one is Christian Worldview and Apologetics. You come in, you watch an hour-long video, and then you have an hour-long table discussion afterwards. And I would watch the hour-long video that was, very, this is what the Word of God says, this is this, but it's like applying it to creation and politics and culture. And it was
giving you a base.
Yeah, and it was so good. Yeah, so good. But when you're not a Christian, it's not so good, right? And so I'm like, this is bullcrap. I hate this. You guys are stupid. And I did. I told those guys at the table, if you believe this crap, you guys are idiots. You're stupid. And I always tell people, it's like, just because they're Christians doesn't mean they're not convicts, okay? And so, like, you tell someone, even us, like, if someone came up and, like, put their finger in our face and said, you're stupid for believing Jesus, I don't know. I hope that I wouldn't punch him in the face, right? But so here I am in prison doing just that, and Charles is just done. He's just, like, throwing his hands in the air. He's like, oh, my gosh. And so this goes on for, like, 2 or 3 weeks where I'm, like, full tilt arguing with these guys. And we walk back to the unit. And, so here's the education building, our unit's over here, and there's a sidewalk that you got to walk around like that. And we're walking back, and we get to about right here, and Charles just looks over at me, and he says, Brian, why don't you give him a chance? Why don't you give him a chance? Jesus being to give him a chance, right? And for whatever reason, in God's sovereignty, as I look at it, that was the moment, okay? And all my guard, all my, defensive mechanisms, for whatever reason, I just said, okay. And kind of as I said earlier, I knew God was real, but I didn't understand Jesus. And he's asking me to give Jesus a chance, not God, but Jesus, which was different. I said, okay. So I went back to my cell and prayed, as I often did. And I said, God, if I need to believe this Jesus character was truly your son, these were my problems with Jesus, okay? And it turns out they're pretty big issues. Said, if this Jesus character was truly your son, that he was born of a virgin, that he lived a perfect, I'm scoffing as I say all this, I'm like, he lived a perfect life, that he died and his death did something for me, and that he rose from the dead. God, if I need to believe that to be okay with you, I need you to show me something, because I'm having a really hard time with this. So I go to sleep that night, and I have a horrible, horrible nightmare. I mean, it was a crazy nightmare, and I still remember, like, a lot of it, which is crazy, but it didn't make a lot of sense what was happening in it, like fat, flashing faces. It even felt demonic. Right.
Well, it probably was.
Yeah. And I'm falling off of a cliff at the end of it. And right before I hit the ground, I wake up, like when you're falling in a
like
dream.
Real life wake up.
Yeah. Like wake up. Whoa. And the only thing I can see, it's completely dark in the cells, and we have those old red digital clocks, right? And so the only thing you can see in the room when I wake up is the red digital clock, and it says 3:16.
Huh.
And the only Bible verse I've ever known my entire life is John 3:16, and it just boom, right? And that was the answer to my question, right? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. You asked, I answered, buddy. It's Sunday morning at 3:16 in the morning. What are you going to do? I guess I'm going to church. So I did. I waited till 8, and I went to Christian services, as they call it in prison, because they have to be politically correct. Went to Christian services, and you know, I don't remember. I sat as far off to the side as I could with my friend Ramon that was on the softball team. Ramon's such a cool dude. He's a giant black dude, just yoked. I'm talking like waist this big, perfect six pack, pecs this big, arms just huge dude. And I had this thing where, and it was a problem in prison. It's the Ned Flanders Christianity. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. If you ever watched The Simpsons, Ned Flanders. Oh, yeah. Okay, so like okie diddly okie doke. You know, it's like this soft kind of, you know, weak, effeminate, gay, you know, thing. Like a lot of Christians, they're like nicer than God and holier than Jesus. You know what I mean? It's just a weird thing. And so I always rubbed me the wrong way. But here's Ramon, this dude. Like, anyway, I'm not gonna like. He's not that guy. That's what I'll say, right? And he was the guy that brought the blood gang from California to Colorado, cold-blooded killer, until God got a hold of him. And now he's like the prison evangelist. These young.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, listen, we're back here. Final segment of the day. I just want to remind you guys that tonight I will be on CNN unless there's a flex. They keep telling me, be aware of the flex. You got to stay fluid because the summit with Trump and Putin is operating at 4 hours behind the time zone that I'm going to be in for the broadcast tonight. But yes, I am in D.C. right now, planning on being on live News Nation with Abby Phillip, CNN tonight, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. So I'd appreciate it. You tune in. Let's see if anything that I said today is allowed to get said tonight. There's always that risk that I might have a comment they just don't want to hear. But that's half the battle on that show, is just getting your opinions in there and holding your own with the others who differ. You got any more text messages before I go to the phones or anything, JP?
Oh, we do have the grades in from.
Yeah, what's the grades? What's John have to say?
JP gets an A for his solid performance, which means today's winner is obviously the magnificent Phil Williams with a perfect A triple plus. Congratulations, and I hope you have a great time on CNN tonight.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Yeah, A triple plus. That's not bad considering that we were basically getting the sound and the audio and video up like 1 minute before we went on the air.
Yeah, and John also said that I'm being really biased with sign stealing, and I just need to get over it. So who knows? We may have both gotten A triple pluses if it wasn't for that.
Well, and you also led off with your first story was Alabama.
I guess so. Yeah, that's true.
Can you go ahead? Hey, can you go ahead and say the word Seinfeld?
Seinfeld, I love Seinfeld. Greatest comedy show, sitcom ever, I think, actually.
John's revising the grades right now as we speak.
Yeah.
Hey, let me go to the phones real quick. I understand that Jeff Rowe from Indiana is on the line. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing real good. I just got through the mess.
There you go. So you're hammered down north of big Nashville, huh?
That's right. I finally got past that mess. I'm just glad I'm not driving to D.C. because I've been there before. Nothing moves there, I don't think.
Well, you know what's funny is I was coming in, the driver bringing me in from the airport. He made a comment. He goes, "I don't know what's happening. I've never gotten across the bridge this fast." So I don't know. I said maybe it's all the new security. He goes, "Security should be bringing more people in, not less." But anyway, I don't know.
Possible all the illegals might have fled by now.
You know what? The illegals are gone, and the homeless encampments all broke down and left.
Well, there you go.
What do you think, man?
You got your props ready for tonight?
No, I didn't bring any props with me. I know you told me to bring like my Ben shot glass for my right side coffee mug, and I should have, but I don't. I did not bring my my assault sandwich.
You've got to at least stop by and get an assault sandwich from somewhere.
I actually am hungry right now. I may have to go find one.
I mean, I mean, they're grooming you to take over for Scott Jennings.
Well, right now, you know what? I would probably settle for half his paycheck. How about that? But no, I think that we are where we need to be, and I'm just glad that they called me once in a while to come up and bring some Southern charm to the set.
Once in a while. Now, how many times you been on now in the last month? 3?
I don't know. Was this 4 or 5? I should be back next week too. I'm not positive. This third time, JP. That's right. One of them got canceled.
Yeah.
And I was on News Nation and Newsmax and some other stuff too. But yeah, the CNN gig is. I'll be honest with you, I am thoroughly enjoying it. And the first week the first time I did it, they had me on there with Anna Navarro, and she was different. She was not very enjoyable. But then the next group that I was with, what a great group of people. I mean, we were laughing and cutting up during the breaks.
I always go to YouTube and see all these Scott Jennings clips and everything. I say it's going to be pretty quick. I'll be seeing Phil Williams clips on there instead of him.
Well, you know what? We can arrange that. Just go to @SendPhilWilliams on Twitter and take a look. All right, man. Let me ask your thoughts on the Trump Putin summit. What do you think about all this stuff?
I think they need to put it on Putin and make him squirm a little bit because this needs to come to a stop. You're losing too much blood and treasure, even though it's not our blood, but it is our treasure, and we've got a lot more in it before. I guess he's making money. We're making money off it now, or at least getting paid for it. But we've got a lot of money invested in that little war so far.
Yeah. Oh, like tens of billions. I want to say it was $54 billion last time I saw. Unbelievable. Did you see? Go ahead.
And I guess today is kind of a bad day for you because it's the 3rd or 4th anniversary for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan.
Is that today? Is it really?
Yes.
Oh man, I did not even realize. Wow. I was actually talking to somebody on the plane about that. It turns out that the lady sitting next to me on the plane, her husband and I had interacted at some meetings together. We realized we had a connection. We were just chatting about some things, and somehow in the middle of it, she asked me what I thought about the way that the pullout in Afghanistan was. And about 2 minutes later, I realized I was getting on a roll and I better slow it down. I have some thoughts about that. But yeah, that was today, wasn't it? Good night. I did not even recall that.
Time flies when time flies when it wasn't flying so much when Biden was in office, but it's kind of flying by now. So we better cherish Trump as much as we can.
I'm agreeing with that. Hey, listen, by the way, I got to ask you before we wind up with our time here. Did you see that when Putin got off of the plane, that Trump had a B-2 stealth bomber with a fighter escort fly overhead?
That's what I hear. I guess I never even seen it coming, apparently.
Well, that's the whole point. It's a B-2 stealth bomber. But yeah, that Batwing plane just came flying right directly over the top of the delegation's heads, and Putin had to stop and look up at it. And that was a moment. There's a whole lot of visual going on in this whole summit.
Yeah, I don't know if Russia's got anything to combat that or not.
No.
According to how much the Chinese have stolen from their little balloons flying over, that they can share information with Russia, I guess.
You know what's funny? I don't know if you remember. There's a movie back in the '80s with Clint Eastwood called Firefox, and it was that the idea was that the Soviet Union had invented a stealth fighter, and we had to capture it because the technology was so intense that we could not let them put that thing into production. And so he went over there and stole the Firefox plane. But I'm looking at it thinking, we're the ones who built it. Why do they keep making movies like Hunt for Red October and Firefox like the Russians are the ones building this stuff? We're the ones building it.
Yeah, exactly. Most everything they got was rusted up in the shipyard when it collapsed and everything.
That's exactly right.
Now apparently they're back in business again for a while.
All right. Well, listen, dude, the music's about to play, so we're about to head out. But you be safe on the road. I know you got some time with your sweet wife this week, so enjoy your trip, and we'll catch you on the flip side, or maybe sometime during the week too. Okay.
All right, I'll be certain to wait when I go by.
All right. Take care, buddy. All right, listen, I mean it when I say it, you guys, every single time. all of y'all out there in the audience in Rightside Ruffian land, you mean the world to us. Thank you so much for being a part of our lives. I'll be on CNN tonight, 9 p.m. Central Time. Dial in and see. Keep in mind that it is fluid. If there's a change in the schedule, we'll just deal with it. But for right now, just remember, I always say it. There's more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you next week.